from the past.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo.
Welcome to the CoCo Crew Podcast. A delicious adventure into the world of retro computing news and information. Featuring the Tandy Color Computer.
Hey, you got your CoCo 3 yet?
CoCo.
All right, welcome, CoCo Cruisers. You have reached the CoCo Crew Podcast, episode number 43, which I like to think of as the Richard Petty edition, just because I'm a good old country boy from North Carolina. But whether or not you share that born and bred NASCAR appeal, which I must admit I'm really not that big a fan, but I did meet Richard once. He was a really nice guy. Anyway, this, of course, is John Linville, and I'm here with all our fine hosts. So we've got Neil Blanchard. Hello, Neil.
John.
Mike Rowan. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Great. How's everybody doing?
Very good. Very good. Boise, how are you doing, Boise?
I'm doing wonderful. It's great to be here.
Awesome. And, of course, the indomitable Ron Klein. How are you doing, Ron?
Good. Hello, everybody.
Very good. Welcome, friends. So, this, of course, is our end-of-year Christmas edition, shall we say. I'm not sure how Christmassy it'll be, but we're going to have a little bit of end-of-year talk somewhere along the episode. Before we get there, we'll have our usual news segment, which I've been told is still popular. So we're getting closer or farther away from closer to both the next Tandy Assembly in 2019. That's 10 months away or so, give or take. The actual CoCo Fest, I've got it as 4 months. It's early May, so it's kind of 4 or 5, depending on how you look at it. But let's call it 4 months for now. Our big events, one recently passed and one coming before too long. Very exciting stuff. How about what have you guys been up to? Anybody working on anything cool? I have finally found the heart to remove some stickers from the production run I had done for Far Fall when I eventually hit a problem and decided to stop ship back in the spring, and so having to rework some boards. And, a little bit of an ugly thing, but no doubt the source of criticism from at least one former CoCo great who likes to shoot his mouth off. But sometimes it's the cost of doing business. If you make a mistake, you just have to correct it. Do I regret having soldered down the chips or whatever? Well, I regret having to the pain of having to do it, but honestly, it's still a better production choice. So I'm going to unsolder them and replace them with other chips and solder those down too. So if you don't like it, well, stick your opinion somewhere that you can read it yourself. Anyway, how about anyone else working on a project? So surely you guys have something brewing already for CoCo Fest?
Well, speaking of cartridges, I'm plugging away on Hunt the Wumpus. Those are almost ready.
Hunt the Wumpus. Very good. I like some of my favorite games are the fairly simple ones. Some people don't think they deserve to be on cartridges, but if you look at the cartridges that were offered by Tandy, not all of those games were exactly
yeah.
So the bars are too high by that.
Yeah, I mean, some people love clowns and balloons, but realistically, it's really just a Circus Atari ripoff, right?
Right.
Anyway, anyone else got some projects going, or anything that they want? They're free to talk about.
I'm continuing on the Game Master cartridge video series on our YouTube channel. So I just released the third one on the Noise channel. It was several months overdue, but there it is. And I am actively working on the next one, which will be about the bank switching ROM. So stay tuned.
Very good. I love those videos. They're very nicely adorned with graphical demonstrations and cool stuff. It's as I like to say, great pedagogy. That's my favorite word to slip in there. So
Completely agree. I really enjoy those videos, Mike. I not only learning about the GMC cartridge and how to access the audio features of it, but there's just other technology that you're talking about that's quite old with regards to the CoCo. But it's really good to see how you're presenting it. It's very valuable lesson. So thank you for doing those.
Oh, thanks. And yeah, I mean, you learn a lot about the CoCo itself. So because you're touching that, so I think it's good. It certainly is educational for me to make them. So
yeah, like latch bites and things like that. You're really introducing us to a lot of neat things.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely cool stuff.
Nice production quality on those videos too, Mike.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, anyone else got something brewing?
I'm working on the latest updates to Cocoa Pie, but one of the things that I'm trying to do for this show, I wanted to come up with some tutorials to help people that goes along with some of the documentation I've provided. And while I'm trying to do it through audio to make it part of the podcast, what I think I'd like to do is I'm working on some video production for that. And maybe we can have that as a kind of an add-on to the show when we discuss it. So, guys, I'll work with you on that, about how we want to present it, but that's what I'm working on right now. I'm also expanding it a little bit. I think I'm adding some other Tandy and TRS-80 emulators into the mix now. There's a lot of stuff that's working very well on the Raspberry Pi, and if people just want to continue using CoCo, that's great. But I'm adding stuff for other Tandy and TRS-80 platforms, including some of the the portable machines as well, since that's what I'm tinkering with. I got an actual Model 100, like I mentioned a show or two ago. I figure, you know what, the Raspberry Pi is capable of doing it. If people are interested, they can use that as well.
Cool. Very good. It's a general purpose machine. Might as well use it for general purposes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, then, let's see. I guess that only leaves you, Boise. Is you got anything cool brewing or just PhD work?
That's the cool thing brewing.
That's cool. Very good. How about any eBay acquisition or other acquisitions? Anyone bought anything cool lately?
A belt for a Tandy portable disk drive. I did buy one of those, John.
Cool.
Trying to get an old school drive going, so.
Cool. I got something kind of neat, a little on the expensive side, but I bought one of these turtle robots that they used to sell specifically for interfacing with the logo. This one's the software that came with it's for the Apple II, but it has a serial port where you can control the robot functions or whatever. So I predict I'll be able to use that with the CoCo. I think DL Logo has a way to interface those sort of robots to it. So
cool.
That may be an ongoing project. Something else I bought. Well, it had an expensive list price. And then when it sold, I saw a bunch of squawking in the community about, oh my God, how could anybody spend that price on it or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know how people kind of run their mouths about eBay and such.
Yeah.
If you're one of those folks, let me just tell you, when it says make offer, you can make an offer. And you don't have to pay the list price if you and the seller agree. And I didn't. I mean, I agreed. I didn't pay list price. Let's put it that way. So you think somebody bought it and they're dumb for paying that price, but maybe they didn't pay the price you think they did, and maybe they got something that you don't have. So there. Boy, I'm feeling sassy today. I guess I had a little too much to drink earlier.
Yeah, I've had luck making offers too. So yeah, that's definitely good advice. I didn't realize it still showed it sold for the price that was posted though. That's cool.
They seem to differ. Sometimes they show it as not as sold, either at the list price or they'll show it as no price shown for how it was sold. They usually don't seem to show the actual sale price if it sells from an offer. I don't know what the rules are there, but yeah, just because something that had an expensive list price sold, don't assume that the person that bought it paid the list price.
Although I presume that you use proper etiquette, right, in making an offer?
Yeah, well, I made the offer through eBay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. I had something on eBay. It's a Liberate 09. $45 is the starting price, and for some reason when I made the listing, I inadvertently left on the option for someone to make an offer. So some guy sends me a $35 offer and I decline it. Then he sends me a $40 offer. So at that time I countered with a $55 offer to get to the point to him that, hey, I don't want to sell the damn thing for less than $45.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, yeah, it's like I say, sometimes you can, when you listen to things, you have to make sure you know what you're doing, or else the listing ends up differently than what you thought it would be, or whatever.
Yes, that's a very important thing to do whenever you're doing work on eBay, is make sure you check all the options and uncheck the options you don't want.
But anyway,
I hope you blog about your turtle experience.
Yeah, well, I've it's one of a long list of projects, of course. Well, it was kind of neat because it showed up and it was just kind of a big box, and I didn't know what it was because the box was so big. Opened it up, and inside it was what appeared to be, you know how you see these old movies from like the 40s or whatever, and somebody will have a suitcase, but it'll have like straps around the outside of the suitcase. I don't know why they put them on there, but maybe they didn't hold together too good in the past. But it looks like an old suitcase. And so I've opened it up and took the straps off and pulled it. Actually, it's a box, so, with like one side, the top slips over the bottom of the box, but it was sort of styled to look like a suitcase. It does have a suitcase handle on it, but yeah, inside was the robot or whatever. So
cool.
Somebody thought it was special, I guess.
There was a CoCo version called the Nomad.
Yeah, this one looked like there were software versions available for at least the PC and the Apple and maybe a couple others, but ultimately it's a serial port, so it'll be okay. You basically send a byte down, and like bit 5 is turn on the left motor, and bit 6 is turn on the right motor, and bit 3 is to drop the pin or lift it or whatever. It does have a mechanism for the pin, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is.
Did anybody else have any cool acquisition they want to talk about?
Oh, no, that's an exciting item, but still Tandy related. Picked up another Tandy 1000 EX on eBay.
Cool. You building a collection of those?
Yep, slowly building those up.
Cool.
I always like those the EX and HX because they kind of remind me of a CoCo. It's the all-in-one solution.
Sure. And they use the same joysticks, so
That's true. The adapter works with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to figure out a cable for those so that you can use the extra buttons too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's probably enough to get us started. So why don't we take a short little break, and we'll be back with our announcements.
New from Double Density Software, it's Double DOS 2. Now use 35, 40, or 80-track double or single-sided drives, all on one system, all at the same time. Supports all regular disk commands, and Double DOS 2 is totally transparent to your BASIC programs. You can get up to 158 granules on a disk using an 80-track drive. Double DOS 2 adds new commands to BASIC. Baud to change the baud rate on a serial port. Track to set 35, 36, 40, or 80 tracks. PDIR to print your directory to a printer. Date, enter the month, day, and year as an extension to your program, and many more. We guarantee this program will work with all 35, 40, or 80 track drives. Just $29.95. 64K required. Double Density Software, Denton, Texas.
You and me, we've been together for a long time. And when you're working so hard, things can get a little hot. And you've got to find a way to cool it down. Cool down your color computer with the CoCo Cooler from REM Industries. It brings down the operating temperature to ambient, regardless of accessory load. Reduces temperature of the entire computer, not just the SAM chip. Easy 1-minute installation, and it's just $39.95. And now offering the CoCo Cooler 2. It's the same price and the same fit for the color computer too. Don't let your color computer get too hot. Cool it down with the CoCo Cooler.
For fastest service, send money order or certified check. Add $2 shipping for continental U.S. Add $4 shipping for Alaska, Hawaii, Canada, and APOs. Add $15 shipping for overseas. Add $3 for 220 to 250 volt model. California residents add 6.5% sales tax. Will ship COD on USA shipments only. All merchandise shipped from stock. CoCo Cooler is a product of REM Industries Incorporated, Chatsworth, California.
All right, welcome back. This is the CoCo Crew podcast, episode number 43, and it's time for the announcements. You are listening to the CoCo Crew podcast. We are available on Twitter as at CoCo Crew Podcast. That's all one word, at CoCoCrewPodcast. If you are prone to sending tweets, feel free to tweet at us, and we might even tweet back. If you are on Facebook, we do have a Facebook group, and that is, of course, the CoCo Crew Podcast. That's 4 separate words. If you search for CoCo Crew, then I'm sure you'll find us. Be wary, though, if you end up on a page that says CoCo Talk, that's a different bunch of guys. The CoCo Crew Podcast, of course, is available on iTunes and on Google Play for normal podcast downloads. Also through the RSS feed at cococrew.org. And for streaming, we're available through both Stitcher and TuneIn. Are there any other streaming services that we should be worried about? I don't know. If you do, let us know. I'll try to get on there. Still got us listed as a member of the Throwback Network. Still haven't seen the Throwback Network regain its internet presence, so it may be a lost cause. But if you find it on archive.org, you will see that we were a member before they left the earth. We are, of course, still listed on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub, a listing of similarly themed podcasts involving gaming technology from the 80s and maybe the 90s, maybe even the 70s. But if you're done listening to the CoCo Crew podcast and you're looking for other podcast outlets, then feel free to check on the Game by Game Podcast Information Hub. Audio for the CoCo Crew podcast is hosted by Cyber Ears. Should you have a need to host a podcast or other source of audio on the internet, then we recommend that you check out Cyber Ears, where you will get your audio on your terms. If you want to reach out via email to the hosts of the CoCo Crew, then we have some email addresses set up. We have a few that will reach all of the hosts. So starting with show, SHOW, at cococrew.org. That's at COCOCREW.org. Also podcast, PODCAST, at cococrew.org. And feedback, FEEDBACK, at cococrew.org. If for some reason you only want to talk to one host or another, then I'm available as John, JOHN, at cococrew.org. Neil is available as Neil, NEIL, at cococrew.org. Mike is available as Mike, MIKE, at cococrew.org. Boise, of course, is Boise, BOISY, at cococrew.org. And Ron, of course, is Ron, RON, at cococrew.org. That's pretty much our standard announcements. We do have a few events in real life coming up that our listeners may be interested in. Coming up in March of 2019, March 23rd to 24th, we have the Vintage Computing Festival Pacific Northwest 2019. This will be held at the Living Computer Museum and Labs in Seattle. Have not been to this event. I think the first one was last year, but I have heard good things. I'm sure it's a great event put on through the Vintage Computing Festival folks. So if you are in the Pacific Northwest part of the United States or the nearby parts of Canada, then I suggest you make way to attend there in March. Also in March, a week later, March 30th to 31st, 2019, we have the Playthrough Gaming Convention. This, of course, is held near me at the Raleigh Convention Center, about an hour away from where I live. The fourth event, the 2-day gaming convention taking place in Raleigh, North Carolina. A weekend-long extravaganza showcasing the latest games and providing an opportunity for gamers to meet others who share their passion. Whether you're interested in video games, esports, tabletop games, or playtesting new creations, Playthrough has something for everyone. If you are going to go to a playthrough, send me a note, let me know. Maybe I'll try to meet up with you. Let's see, coming up to April 12th through 14th, 2019, we have the Midwest Gaming Classic 2019. This, I believe, is one of Ron's favorites, held at the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Midwest Gaming Classic is a trade show featuring 150,000 plus square feet of retro and modern home video game consoles, pinball machines, arcade video games, computers, tabletop gaming, rain games, collectible card games, and air hockey. And that's just the start. It's a cool show, right, Ron?
It's got something for everybody. It really does. I'm looking forward to going again. So, if, like you said, if anyone's going to this show, let me know.
Me.
Oh, great. We'll meet up. There's a lot to do there, a lot to take in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, very good. Okay, that brings us to CoCo Fest coming up May 4th through 5th of 2019. CoCo Fest, the 28th annual last Chicago CoCo Fest, being held at the Heron Point Convention Center in Lombard, Illinois. So come out and touch the Heron. For those of you who are interested in exhibiting at CoCo Fest, you should know that the exhibitor's application, also could be called the vendor's application, is available on the website. A few changes, may want to beware if you'll indulge me here. They're basically pricing changes. The idea is last year we were very full, and that was a great and a wonderful thing. But we're trying to make a few efforts to possibly reduce the demand for vendor tables. One thing is we've adjusted the price. So if you fill out the application, you can get one table, or also called a booth, one table and one pass for a person to attend. And it covers both days, of course. That'll cost you $30. If you want an extra table, that'll cost you an extra $25. If you need an extra vendor pass, if you're bringing a buddy or a spouse or whatever, that'll cost you an extra $5. So the one change from previously, we are asking for people to limit themselves to at most one extra table. So, one by default, two for those who really need one. If you really need more than one, if we don't sell out all our tables, then maybe we'll have a few extra that we can open up later in the registration. But for now, we are asking everyone to limit themselves to, one table if you can, and at most two tables. We also have a new option for those who want to have a table, but are really they're basically really attendees and just want a place to be able to sit down. They're spoils of war, shall we say, place to sit, a place to dump the goods they've acquired from the vendors, that sort of thing. We're calling that a place to call home. The half-depth table, not allowed any sales, but you do have a pass for the weekend. That'll cost you $20. And of course, if you are participating in the Saturday night dinners, that'll cost you $20 per adult. Children 12 and under will be free. Anyway, thank you for that little indulgence. Back to our announcements. And then the last item on our announcements is, of course, Kansas Fest 2019. That'll be in July 15th through 21st of 2019, held at Rockhurst University in Kansas City, Missouri. Is that right? This is the summer camp for Apple II nerds. They are good people. They like Apple IIs, but it washes off if you get too close. So there you go. Kansas Fest is a great event. If you're into Apple II, then I recommend that you look into it, and you may want to make your decisions shortly, because they have been known to fill up. All right. Well, that's our announcements for this month. We're going to take another break, and then we'll be back with the news.
Winter is here again. And whether you have a hunting cabin or just enjoy a rustic home, nothing is as comfortable as coming in from the cold to the warmth of a wood-burning stove. And now your TRS-80 color computer can monitor your stove with the Wood Heat Stove Monitor System. It's easy to install and works with any CoCo with 16K Extended Color Basic. You can monitor the flue temp and set upper and lower temperature alarms. No more guessing when to add wood or oversleeping and waking up to a cold house. It's easy to use and easy to load from cassette. It even generates temperature graphs. The Wood Heat Stove Monitor System is just $74.95. Dealer inquiries are invited. Wood Heat is located at 1032 3rd Avenue in West Belmar, New Jersey. Does your color computer know what time it is? Well, now it can with the RTC10 real-time clock. The RTC10 is a quartz-based time-date clock contained in a compact ROM case. The included 2-year-plus replaceable battery keeps time accurate when the computer is off and even when the cartridge is unplugged. It can be used with or without a multi-slot unit. The included software allows you to set the clock as well as display time and date in the upper right corner of the video screen. The RTC10 makes it simple to access the time and date with just a few basic peaks. It's compatible with any 16K or greater extended or non-extended color computer. The RTC10 comes completely assembled, tested, and ready to plug in and use. The RTC10 real-time clock. Only $89 from Custom Computer Products. Goshen, New York.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. Now it's time for our news segment.
All right, we're kicking off the news here. The first one is from Diego Barzo, and it's called Hippo Teeth. And this is pretty cool. It's a game run on the CoCo 1 and 2. I think it's written in BASIC, but it's pretty cool. You have a big hippo's mouth, and there's teeth in it, and there are these worms that are attacking the teeth. You're the dentist moving back and forth, trying to shoot down these worms and save the teeth. And you keep playing until the poor hippo is out of teeth. But very, very cool game. Good link. You should definitely follow that one. And our next item is from Jeremy Spiller. 60 frames per second or bust.
Yeah, how about this pretty cool write-up from Jeremy? He's responsible for the Crystal City and
Xenix.
And Xenix, yeah. Super fast games, yeah.
Yeah, they are amazingly fast, action-packed games. So if anybody knows what they're talking about, could be Jeremy. And it's a nice little write-up of some stuff. I think there's some good info here. Like he's got some source examples available. Very cool. Nice to see a write-up from an old-timer.
All right, our next one is from Henry Reitveld. And it's using a wireless PS2 keyboard with a Cloud9 PS2 keyboard adapter.
Yeah.
He just reviews using that. Those are great devices. I use the Cloud9 PS2 adapter on a couple of my CoCos, and they work great, and they do work fine with wireless keyboards.
Sure. Yeah, no great magic there. It's the PS2 adapter that's the important part, but if anybody was wondering if the wireless part changed the equation, it certainly seems not. So very nice.
Yep. Okay, our next one is from Carlos Camacho. I'm going to go ahead and sell my 2 megabyte CoCo 3 case badge rather than waiting to launch my e-commerce store.
Something that's happened this year is there's been some new 2 megabyte RAM expansion available. Already had seen the market opened up for the earlier 512K badges by some really cool entrepreneurial folks. And the 2 meg, I guess there's some demand there. I don't know if Carlos is going to end up as the only vendor for there or not. I suspect not. But I don't want to pre-announce anything, so we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, our next one is from Radio Shack. And I'm sure most people have heard this by now if they haven't, but they are now selling T-shirts and different apparel. I know a bunch of us jumped in and bought some of the Radio Shack shirts. Their TRS-80 shirt's pretty cool because it's got the 3 color bars like the color computer. So I personally bought one of the realistic shirts too. So if you're a fan, there's plenty to choose from. And right after we bought all these, they came out with a whole additional line of sweatshirts and hoodies. I don't know how you guys think, but I think the quality of mine have been great.
Yeah, I got one of the CoCo ones, and I was pretty pleased with it. Somebody said the sizes ran a little small, but I found that it actually was all right. The material was soft and stretchy and fit pretty well to me. But yeah, it's cool that they have not only they have the CoCo ones, which is a nice little tribute to our favorite machine, but then they have, like you say, Radio Shack in a number of patterns, realistic.
Model
They
one
even have
shirts.
one with a Battery Club card on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely fun and good shirts. So definitely visit them.
I bought one of the black CoCo ones as well. It's almost like a uniform now amongst most of us.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see a lot of them at CoCo Fest this year.
Cool.
All right, our next story is from Chet Simpson, and it's CoCo Development Shell version 1.0 beta.
You see these popped up from time to time, different ways that people are trying to give somebody aids for writing CoCo software. This one actually has its roots quite some time back. I think it was at least around the early 2000s, maybe before. But this is something that Chet Simpson's kind of returned to the community and been digging out some stuff lately, and useful tools from somebody who knows how to use them.
It's interesting, and it's good that he's released it for everybody open source, or at least you can download it anyway. So very good. Thanks, Chet.
Yep, very good.
Okay, so the next news item here from Walter Zambodi, the Open VCC update. I was just looking at his email update on this. It looks like he's added the Orchestra 90 support and some RAM disk module. He still needs to add the Becker emulation and the Super IDE modules. I'm very interested in this. I liked VCC, but I don't spend a lot of time in Windows. And I know it's had issues in the past, but with him working on this and the possibility of it working under X and Linux is very appealing to me. So I'm looking forward to a release to try it under to Linux.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of people favor VCC. One of its weaknesses has been being Windows only. It's good to see somebody working to address that.
Next item, hot on the heels of Diego's program, we have Jim Gary, who went ahead and did a port of Hippo Teeth to the MC10. Actually, visually, it looks very, very close.
It does.
It even plays very, very similarly. Jim did a great job on this. He does port quite a few games over to the MC10, and he's showing no signs of slowing down at all. So thank you, Jim, very much for that.
Yep, another good one.
That's how you know you've made it in the CoCo world, is if Jim ports makes a game like yours on the MC10.
Our next item is from Scott Kelly. So this is interesting. I reached out to Scott and actually John Strong a little while ago. Scott was doing some other 3D printing work, and of course John does quite a bit. And I was looking to see about mounting a Raspberry Pi in a CoCo case. And Scott went ahead and put together a bracket to do just that. I don't think he's released the plans just yet, but what he's put together is very interesting. It's just something I'm looking at for some other projects right now. We'll see if I can get a hold of one of these things and I can continue doing some work. But thank you very much, Scott, for putting that together. And I'll be interested to try one of these.
And just to be clear, this isn't the astronaut Scott Kelly, right?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Good one, Mike. Good one.
Yeah.
It is.
Although he is welcome to come to CoCo Fest or participate in any kind of CoCo events as far as I'm concerned. But yes, or no, it's not the same guy as far as we know.
Okay, our next news item is from Pierre Sarazin. The latest CMOC is out. Looks like he's added Dragon support and a new keyboard joystick library for that. I use CMOC on the Raspberry Pi as part of the CoCo Pi. I also use it on my main Linux workstation. He's put a lot of work into that, and he's very receptive to adding features, things of that nature. I've emailed him on the side when I was trying to get this to work on a Raspberry Pi under ARM, and he was great to work with. So definitely appreciate his continued updates on this project.
Yeah, great to see more updates. It's awesome.
So I'm looking at the next news item. I guess I must have missed this when I was reviewing it. I have not seen anything from Eric Raymond in quite some time, so it's good to know he's still around. I did not have a chance to read this article, Things Every Hacker Once Knew.
Yeah, so like you say, Eric Raymond, for those who don't know, has been prolific in the Unix world for some time. Writes a lot of let's call it Unix philosophy and kind of articles or whatever. He's famous for writing something called The Cathedral and the Bazaar, which was an early kind of description of the open source model of software development, but when it was still more of a new thing before we took over the world. Eric, I don't actually know Eric. I have exchanged email with him on a couple of issues, but fine guy or whatever. He can, depending on who you're talking to, he can be a little controversial. Not so much because of his Unix or hackery kind of stuff, but like me, he's kind of a Second Amendment guy. Let's just leave it at that. But but here he's written something. Hopefully, it's not controversial to anybody, but it just kind of goes over, the title, Things Every Hacker Once Knew. And so he kind of goes over stuff about serial ports and old kinds of networking and why people use octal notation and all kinds of stuff that used to be, a computer nerd, shall we say. There were things that you just sort of expected any other computer nerd would know. Some of this stuff dates back to 1961 or earlier, even possibly. And, that's more than 50 years ago now. So some of the people who knew this back and forth, of course, are no longer with us, or at least no longer interested in talking to newbies on the internet. So, anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting from that perspective. And since we're all, CoCo or otherwise, we're all retro computing people, and some of this might be interesting to us. Some of us might actually learn a few things from it.
Mostly just makes you feel old.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that it does.
Yeah.
All right, our next news item is from Chris Lamont, Robotron 2084 disassembly. It's interesting because he mentions using the IDA Pro program. That's been around for quite some time. A lot of people were using that to generate game cracks back in the day, if I recall. But it looks like he even wrote his own 6809 assembler that could handle the output coming from IDA Pro. So that's really interesting. I wonder if this is going to turn into a port for maybe our system here once he gets it all set up.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if you remember that Chris Lamont was part of the community for a while. He even has some pretty reasonable CoCo 3 documentation out that's still available on the web, I believe. I don't remember specifically what happened, but there was some kind of falling out with him in the community, and this is years ago. I mean, decades ago, maybe. But apparently he's still out there doing some amount of retro work that at least brushes against the 6809. We have other people that might be interested in working with Robotron 2084 or whatever, but we all would like to see more Williams game stuff. Anyway, I just threw it in there. It might be interesting to see what comes of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's going on, CoCo Cruisers? The original gamer Stevie Stroh here, and I'm the host of CoCo Talk. What is CoCo Talk, you ask? Well, we are a weekly live talk show on YouTube featuring the Tandy Color computer. And guess what? CoCo Talk is now also available as an audio podcast for your listening pleasure. So when you are done listening to the CoCo Crew podcast, come check us out at cocotalk.live for weekly live talk featuring the Tandy Color computer. We'll see you there, CoCo Cruisers.
Have you heard of the Fred hard drive emulator for the TRS-80?
Huh, yeah, spelled kind of funny, ain't it?
With the Fred, you can store your entire library of TRS-80 software on a single SD card.
No way. I just finished sorting all of these floppy disks. It's beautiful.
Programs that run slowly from floppy disk run lightning fast with the Fred.
Listen, pal, I have lots of free time, and keeping my floppy disks organized is kind of my hobby.
The Fred also includes a battery-backed real-time clock.
If you can't affix gum labels to it, I ain't interested.
For information and pricing, contact Ian Maverick via email, ianm@trs-80.com.
Hey, do you know where I can find some more of those big plastic disk storage cases?
All right. Our next news article is from Jim Gary.
Woohoo.
And, another one by Jim Gary here. It's a game called Orient Express by David All.
Yeah. It's a port of a David All is there's some games or some books back, in the early days that were like basic games that were sort of a generic version of basic or whatever that, in the era when you would type basic programs out of magazines, there were books you could get. One was literally called Basic Computer Games, and I think there was another one called More Basic Computer Games. So very, very imaginative titles, but but this seems to be one of those that he's gotten up and running.
So those books you mentioned, they were kind of like, just a generic basic where it work on most machines?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they picked one like, say AppleSoft or something like that, and then usually like some porting guide stuff available that would say, on the Apple II, there's this command, but on the Commodore, you have to do this instead.
Right.
Commodore, you probably have to poke or something.
yeah, no doubt.
And, the R&D function, the CoCo was, basically an integer, but on other machines, it would return a floating point value that you didn't have to multiply by the range you wanted. So there were like porting tips in that for that, but, they were essentially basic, Microsoft style basic for the most part. But
well, that's cool. All right, our next news article is from another fellow Canadian by the name of L. Curtis Boyle. I'm sure some of you have heard of him.
The Canadian with a Spanish name.
And he has released Nitrous 9 Ease of Use Beta 2.
Yeah, and in fact, I think as of Friday, he had just announced he just released Beta 3, but
yeah, I was actually thinking that because I was going to say I'm pretty sure I read Beta 3 is released.
These are news from the past month, so.
Okay. Yeah, either way, it's a really cool project. I plan on checking it out over the holidays. It'll be off for a few weeks, so it'd be fun to play around with that.
Cool.
I don't know if any of you guys have checked it out yet.
I downloaded it. I'll be trying it out as well. I've been trying to follow it. It's let's see, Curtis has been doing that. Who else has been on that project? There's been a couple others I think that have helped contribute to it.
Bill Noble, right?
Bill, yep, Bill's done some stuff with it. So it's come a long way, I think, from when they first started. I mean, I think the beta prior to Beta 2 was closed, I think just to a very small amount of people.
Right.
So it's good that he's opened it up. And they even have versions now, I guess, for some of the FPGA devices. So the CoCo 3 FPGA.
Yeah, I saw that.
Michael Furman's done a port of Beta 2. Well, I'm not saying a port, but he's certainly made it work on the CoCo 3 FPGA. And I think he even posted a video of that. It's very, very fast.
I think Curtis is just releasing it for a pretty specific configuration, CoCo SDC and 512K or whatever. Anything that comes up on a different configuration, it means somebody's had to take it and adjust the available device drivers and descriptors and that sort of stuff. So
sounds like the way Nitrous 9 always was.
Right. But it's ease of use if you've got the right hardware. And if not, you
exactly
have to adjust it to your hardware. But
that the planet has to align and.
Well, it's a good effort. It's just
it is.
Doesn't cover everybody.
Yeah, it's coming along.
But nonetheless, it's cool to see the project hasn't been. It's still continuing, so which is good.
Yeah, and if it means more people use Nitrous 9, it's a great thing.
For sure. All right, our next news article is this is actually a pretty interesting one, at least for me. It's from Sam Makovich at Ars Technica, and it's Al Lowe reveals his Sierra source code collection, then puts all of it on eBay. Al Lowe, he's the guy who created Leisure Suit Larry. I'm a big fan of that game, but the other Sierra Adventure games as well. So it's kind of cool to see this.
Yeah. I think there might be more to this story, but I couldn't find anything else that explained what happened. But I seem to recall that at some point the eBay auction kind of went dark or something. So there might be more to the story. I know there were a lot of people saying, well, he doesn't have the right to sell it even if he has it archived and that kind of stuff. I don't know if he got bullied by whoever owns the rights or bullied is a fair thing to say, but you get what I'm saying. So I'm not sure what happened there. There might be more news. if anybody knows what happened there, then feel free to give us some feedback.
All right, our next news article is from another one from Jim Gary. It's called The Mad Computer Program.
It draws a picture of Alfred E. Newman. So the Mad magazine.
Okay, yeah, the Mad magazine program.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
pretty
cool.
We'll grab his demo.
All right, next news article is from Michael Maidenuk.
We had him on for an interview, but still can't pronounce his name.
I still can't pronounce. Yeah, I know. I remember that. Yeah, he was
Madanic, something like that. I'm sorry, Michael, I can't get it right, but
the article is called Z80 Model 4 versus 6809 CoCo Retro Speed Challenge.
So he's got a video and he does some. I think it's all in BASIC. Sets up some similar loops and program segments or whatever, and has them run. I'm not sure the CoCo comes out on top of all of it or most of it, but it's still a valid question. We've certainly had articles like that in Rainbow or whatever back in the day.
I actually watched that video. I really enjoyed his interview in one of our previous episodes, so I was watching this, and it went back and forth a little bit. You're right. I'm not sure if the CoCo won. The one thing I couldn't help but notice when he was running the tests, and I know he was trying to keep them as close as possible, is if it would have made a difference if you didn't run the CoCo in 80 column mode for some of these tests.
That's true.
Because I really felt that slowed down the screen updates. In fact, I wonder what a CoCo 2 or even CoCo 1 might have done against it. Because from the display standpoint, when you run in 80 column mode, it just doesn't seem fast.
Yeah, it does slow down the server. And I mean, even he said in that video that the BASIC was just kind of slapped together, not really optimized probably for the 6809.
Well, it's a data point.
But great video. Good to watch.
It was.
Next news article is another one from Jim Gary. Actually, I think I've done 3 here in my section.
I need to get a bell and ring it anytime they're saying Jim Gary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We could do a drinking game too. Would be
right.
Wouldn't be feeling much after that.
Yeah.
A game called The Witching Hour, the hour where you don't know which is which. Sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah, a port from a Compute Magazine PC Junior game. Kind of Jim's calling card, and it's a port of a obscure game from a magazine, like something that might be fun.
No shortage of games to try out, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well done, Jim.
Very good, Jim. We got one from Jason Downs. I don't know much about Jason. I don't think he's been around all that long, but maybe he just had his head down. I guess he's acquired one of Ed Snyder's new Mega Mini MPIs. He posted how he was taking the Mega Mini for a spin, is what he said. But then he turned out he had some problems running the STC Explorer. If I'm not mistaken, what turned out to be was that the STC Explorer, I guess, it automatically searches through the slots on your multipack. The algorithm that he was using basically just isn't compatible with any multipack that has more than 4 slots. And he said, well, the Mega Mini has 4 slots, but it turns out the Mega Mini really has 6 slots. The Mega Mini MPI from Ed has that added on the audio chip, the OPL3 audio chip, and then they added on serial ports. Rather than allocate addresses in the FF address space specifically for those, Ed has put them on virtual slots, is for lack of a better term. And so the point being is that his 4-slot MPI really looks like a 6-slot MPI. I understand that the STC Explorer was fixed pretty quickly once that problem was identified. Some other early adopters having a few issues here and there, but I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. Nothing insurmountable, just growing pains or whatever the right term is for a new product. Our next link, this is one from a Facebook group called ZIL, the Zork Implementation Language. So this is from Frederick Romsberg. Says about 8 months ago, Johan Berntsson and I were talking about writing an inform game for the Commodore 64 and releasing it commercially, Infocom style. Basically, they weren't happy with the available options, and they wrote a new Infocom game interpreter that supports Z3, Z4, Z5, and Z8 games, which, if you're familiar with the Infocom nomenclature or whatever, it basically means even the later games that wouldn't otherwise have run on any existing interpreter for the 8-bit machines. And so they've made it open source, GPL2, and I'm sure it's written in 6502 assembler, which, basically makes me, I think it's would not be much fun to deal with. But if you were a 6502 guy that also likes 6809, maybe this could be a project for you. Is porting over this new interpreter, or perhaps writing your own new interpreter, because I'm sure there's lots of Z8 games or whatever that might be fun to play on the CoCo. So, not a CoCo project, but it could be. Very cool. All right, well, moving on. Another one from Jason Downs. This is in the CoCo Facebook group. It says, there's been several hardware projects demoed or at least mentioned over the past couple of years which don't seem to have appeared. Whatever happened to the PS2 mouse adapter or the Ethernet NEC? Now, that's not really news by itself. He's really just asking a question, but I included it to sort of have the discussion that Jim Brain actually responded to him, basically replying that, this is a hobby for people, and sometimes projects don't get done on a timely basis as we would like, and sometimes asking when is it going to be available, is it done yet, or how much will it cost, isn't necessarily helpful. So he does point out that David Ladd's PS2 mouse adapter is pretty much done, but just as a project, so he's not offering it as a product, which, project versus product is a meaningful distinction. And then he also points out that his project, it was CoCo NIC, and he says it's basically ready. There's some physics code to make it run, but there's not a lot of general purpose code to use with it. And so he doesn't feel like that makes it worth turning his project into a product without any software, which is something we sometimes see a little too much of in the CoCo community, is people turning their hardware projects into products with no real software behind them. It's always tempting to think that somebody's going to come up and write software to go with it, but it doesn't seem to happen as often as we would like, does it?
Yeah, software's king. You do need it.
Just a little discussion point there, but I took it in the news. Oh, well. If you don't like it, blame me. All right, here's one from Matt Voss. He says, I ported it to the VC200. I ported it to Dragon 32. So here it is for the CoCo. Blitz, coded in Color Basic 1.0. It's a semi-graphics game. Looks like you're bombing a city.
How mundane.
I don't see it in motion, just a picture, but like I said, it looks like a bomb dropping on an office building or something. So if you're looking for a way to spend an afternoon destroying things in the virtual world, then maybe Matt's Blitz game would be fun for you.
Take out your frustrations.
Exactly.
Did you know that the average business person receives 190 pieces of information each day? Is your business or organization struggling to coordinate and track important tasks and events? Then you need Calendex, the automated computer calendar. Calendex is easy to use. Just enter due date and information on an electronic file card. Calendex starts reminding you of upcoming events a month in advance. And Calendex will keep reminding you until you tell it that the item has been taken care of. The Calendex chain of command feature allows each member of your group to have a personal ID. Calendex will report seriously overdue items up the chain of your organization until they are taken care of. Use Calendex every day and always know what tasks are coming due. Never miss important deadlines. feel secure that everyone is up to date. Keep a permanent record of activities. Experience the power of Calendex for yourself. For a limited time, Calendex for the color computer is available for only $35. Calendex from Grantham Software Division, the automated computer calendar.
Learn how to use your computer for more than just games with Hot CoCo magazine. Hot CoCo is packed with business application programs, home management help, programming tips and tutorials, product reviews, and more. Subscribe for just $24.97 for 12 issues. That's 30% off the newsstand price. Let Hot CoCo show you how much time you can save with your color computer. And save even more time with Instant CoCo, the cassette version of Hot CoCo magazine, containing all of the programs that appear in the issue. See the latest issue of Hot CoCo magazine for details. Hot CoCo, available at fine retailers everywhere.
Okay, so the next one is a DIY Game Genie for Atari 2600 using an FPGA. We hear a lot about FPGA projects, quite often used to emulate a CoCo or whatever, or often used as either FPGA or CPLD, used as the brains of some add-on for the CoCo or whatever. But this is kind of a different take. Of course, it's for the Atari 2600. That's a different device, but the basic idea, I think, is applicable. You know, you could plug something into the CoCo's cartridge port and then plug a cartridge onto the other end of it and then, you know, intercede in certain memory accesses or whatever. Those of you who don't remember the Game Genie, it was a way to do, well, to put cheats into games. I think it was originally for the NES, and there may have been similar devices for some of the other games, consoles. Anyway, again, this is not a CoCo project, but it could be the kind of department. Well, it'd be nice if some of our hardware geniuses would build us a CoCo Game Genie so that you could do your own hacks or whatever and come up with your own cheat codes so you could have unlimited lives in Audio Spectrum Analyzer. No, wait, unlimited lives in in Donut Dilemma or whatever you'd like to have. It could be fun, don't you think? I think it'd be a good device. It'd be nice to see somebody build something like that.
I could finally beat the Contras.
And in the Spectrum Analyzer, you could make the highs look higher than they really are.
Very nice. Okay, so the next one, let's see. This is from Chet Simpson. So he's been working on a Digger 3, so a follow-on to his previous Digger game, which is a Load Runner clone. This one doesn't show a picture, but it's got some. If you can find other pictures of his work, it looks really good. So there's an updated version of Digger 3 with a blind fix to allow it to work on 2 meg machines, fixes the warp codes and input handling along with a little bit of polish. So apparently he posted an earlier version that for some reason wasn't working on megs. If you're one of those hot-rodded CoCo 3s with 2 megs, you can use this version here. Looks like a cool game. I mean, it already was, the earlier Digger was already a cool game. And, of course, Digger 2, the Saint, or whatever exactly it was called, Revenge of the Saint, something like that.
Return of the Saint, I think.
Return of the Saint. And Digger 3 looks like a worthy successor to those. So, looking good, Chet.
So the next item is chip on breadboard 6809 microprocessor doing sex. This is a video on YouTube of a guy that looks like he took a ceramic 6809 and hooked it up to a breadboard and has it doing the sex instruction over and over and over again.
You're going to hurt yourself like that.
That's right. Too much sex.
So this, when you're, if you ever want to build your own microprocessor board or whatever, it's an early step to kind of ensure that the processor is up and getting the clock and voltage and all that properly. And sometimes you hardwire it so that whatever memory access it does, it gets a 1-byte instruction, and you can kind of monitor that and see, get an idea if the processor is working. And that's basically what he's doing here.
This reminds me back when I was working at Microware, James Jones and I, and James, if you're listening, you might get a chuckle of this, but James and I would often have discussions about compilers and compiler code generation, because James worked on the Ultra C compiler, and James always would say how the 6809 compiler would generate a lot of SEX instructions due to the sign extending that had to be done, and he would accuse the 6809 compiler of gross violations of gratuitous sex. Good memories. All right, the next item is a visual defragmenter for the Commodore 64. So this is pretty cool. Looks like a guy wrote a disk defragmenter for a Commodore 64 and a 1541 disk drive in BASIC.
Yeah, pretty cool. And then not only that it can do the defragmenting and whatever too, but that it gives you the graphical display. I think a lot of us have seen these back in the days of MS-DOS or whatever, when that was always your first, how do I fix my slow machine? Well, defrag the hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the same kind of thing here, but always kind of fun to watch the defragmentation take place. Maybe somebody can build a CoCo version. That'd be cool.
Nice. The next item is RetroRix PGDM issue number 1. This looks like a disc magazine. Is this for the CoCo?
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know what PGDM stands for. Pretty good disc.
DM must be, yeah. Disc magazine, I guess, is what DM stands for.
But yeah, it's got a collection of programs or whatever. And if you download the PDF, it's basically just a description of some files on the disk, I guess. And you got some programs that you can run. Anyway, it's Rick's attempt at reviving a disc magazine similar to the old T&D software stuff.
Right, and CoCo Friends Disc Magazine was another one by whose name escapes me, a guy from Kentucky.
Yeah.
The CoCo years ago.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, the next item is the source files are based on the contents of the Unravel series as published by Spectral Associates as updated by Walter Zeidheck by William Astol. So this looks like William posted the source to the various CoCo ROMs from the Unravel series. Is that what this is?
So this is a HG, Mercurial repository. It's a code repository, but he's gone through the ROMs, and apparently he seems to have found a number of places that he felt were the comments were inaccurate or just plain wrong or whatever, and he's corrected them. I obviously have not done anything to validate that. So your mileage may vary, who knows? But I'm sure there probably were mistakes in those books, just because it's a lot of stuff to do. So maybe Williams straightened some of that out. If you were ever puzzled by some piece of the code and were not satisfied with the explanation you got by looking at the books, or if you've never looked at the books, maybe you want to check out Williams' repository and see what he has to say about it.
And if, just in case it's not really well known out there, the Toolshed repository has the source code for all of those CoCo ROMs in it. So I had done that some time back. I had taken the source code out of the Unravel series and extracted that to source files that could be assembled by, I think, LW Tools. So, All right, the next item is Digger 3 Demo RGB display by Reetful. This looks like a game, looks like Chet's game actually, and it's a YouTube video where Henry is playing the game and showing the, I guess, very, very close-up shot of the game as he's playing it on what appears to be an RGB monitor. Correct?
Yeah. Like I said, it is very close up. I'm not sure why it's so close up, but but yeah, it does show the game. This is one we're talking about just a little bit earlier. And you can see how nice the graphics look, and it is basically a load runner style of game.
Yeah, the graphics are very, very good, and up close you can see a lot of detail. Thank you for that, Henry. And the last link here is a Facebook post by Jason Downs titled, "So what do you guys think? Bad drive?" And it looks like he's posted a couple of screenshots of a CoCo running several disk commands and what might be corrupt data on the directory.
There's a lot of diagnostic or trying to help or whatever in the comments. This is a guy with the Mega Mini MPI. At first, I thought maybe there's a problem with that. But then he also has the Boomerang 2 meg upgrade, and it's a lot of kind of new hardware and unknowns involved, and getting this weird results. And I think what the current thought is, but I'm not sure it's 100% worked out. But the last I've heard is the thought is that the DAT board for the Boomerang, which is the board that goes up under the CPU and allows you to go to up to 2 meg with the Boomerang memory board, that there's a kind of a problem with the implementation of the address bus buffering. So basically, you don't always read from the address you thought you're going to read from, is essentially what it amounts to, which is why he's showing all this weird stuff on the screen. Something to be aware of. You go buying hardware fresh off the presses, sometimes sometimes you're going to have problems, right?
Yeah.
And especially new designs or whatever. So that's kind of where we're at on that one. But it's sort of a caveat emptor. If you're buying new stuff, you got to sometimes be prepared that things may not work just like they're supposed to, and you may have to work with the vendors get them fixed. So
cool.
Very good. Thank you. That's the end of our news segment. So we'll take another little break, and then we'll be back with some feedback.
Make your Tandy Color computer more versatile with great additions from Radio Shack. The Tandy multi-pack interface is just $99.95 and allows you to connect up to 4 program pack cartridges. Easily change between the 4 slots using the front panel switch or switch slots under software control. How about adding an 80-column adapter? Just plug in the WordPack RS cartridge to your color computer and attach a monochrome monitor. It generates crisp, clear 80-column text with true upper and lower case characters. And it's just $99.95. Find these and other great color computer products only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Your Tandy color computer is powerful, but it's plagued with one problem: clunky expansion. Bowtech Instruments has the solution: quality hardwood cabinets for your color computer. Eliminate that mess on your desk by transferring your computer components into a single elegant case. Our beautiful wood cases have room for your color computer motherboard, disk controller, 2 half-height floppy disk drives, and an additional 5x7 board, such as an 80-column card. Each case is precision milled in our factory and includes a high-quality switching power supply for all of your color computer components. Each case includes a matching hardwood keyboard enclosure for your color computer keyboard. Stop fighting the mess of cables and adapters that take up all of your desk space. Make your system shine with a new hardwood case from Bowtech Instruments. Cases are available in your choice of hardwoods: oak, maple, cherry, walnut, and teak. Another quality computer product from Bowtech Instruments, Utica, Michigan, USA.
All right, CoCo Cruisers, now it's your turn to talk to us, so it's time for some feedback. We have a couple items this month. First item comes from Salvador Garcia. Salvador says, like the extended talk about the stack, maybe something else to mention is how it grows, whether it's upwards or downwards in memory. If this was mentioned, oops, I've got retention problems. Well, don't we all? Yeah, so stacks grow downwards in memory, but if you're like me, that isn't always by itself. Saying upwards versus downwards doesn't necessarily tell you what you need to know, because when I was getting started, when I think of things, for some reason I always put the lowered numbers at the top of the page. Kind of like if you're going to write a test, you get ready for a test back in grade school, they say, take out a new sheet of paper and number it from 1 to 10. Well, number 1 is going to go at the top of the page, and number 10 is going to go at the bottom of the page. But when they talk about your stack growing downwards in memory, well, the address location 10 is at the top of the page, and address location 1 is at the bottom of the page. So it grows downwards in memory, but it means that the addresses get smaller. I think I said that right. Anybody disagree? Okay, man.
No.
Good. All right. Moving on. This one is from Steve Stroh, not Steve Strobridge, but Steve Stroh. We've met Steve Stroh at CoCo Fest this year. A big man who gave me a big hug. I'm sure that's quite to say because I'm not a very small person myself. So a couple of big guys in the corner hugging. Maybe a few people said, "What kind of party is this?" He says, I enjoy catching up on the news of the CoCo Community Monthly. I think I've said before that I think the monthly format is the, quote, right frequency, at least for me. My favorite segment is the news. I always enjoy hearing all those tidbits. Well, thank you, Steve. It's good to know that somebody enjoys the news. It's always the biggest part of the program. It's always the part that gets my jaw feeling a little tired by the end of the session. All right, well, that's all the feedback I think we have this month. We always love getting feedback through any means, so feel free to send us email feedback@cococrew.org. Send us a tweet to @CoCo Crew Podcast. Write something on the Facebook group, the CoCo Crew Podcast. Reach out however you feel. But let's hear from you. All right, we'll take a little break, and we'll be back with a little discussion.
You're coming in loud and clear. Must be a realistic CB radio.
10-4, good buddy. It's my new 40-channel Realistic. Radio Shack's got it on sale right now for only $79. I saved $60.
That Realistic sure is a good brand.
10-4 on that. You can depend on Realistic.
Where are you headed now?
Back to Radio Shack. The new 4K TRS-80 color computer is on sale for just $349.
10-4, good buddy. Color graphics, sound, joysticks. Talk to you later.
Whoa, where you going?
Radio Shack, of course.
The Realistic 40-channel CB radio and TRS-80 color computer on sale now. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
All right, welcome back, CoCo Cruisers. Normally we would have a host discussion on some sort of open-ended, maybe slightly controversial topic. Maybe that's what we're going to have anyway. But instead of contriving a well-crafted or barely thought of or whichever kind of question this time, since it is the end of the year, we thought we would have a little bit of an end-of-the-year discussion. Now, granted, we had our community roundtable, which will also be part of this episode, but I don't think all of our hosts were available on that. In any case, this is more of a what do our actual hosts think, not what does anybody else think? Who cares, right? But I think we're just going to throw out a few things as people think of that, what kind of things happened over the years, not in any particular, certainly not in chronological order, not necessarily in any kind of order of importance. It's just more of a, what are the hosts, what pops into our heads as we go out. I'm going to start. So 2018 year in review for the CoCo. This one's kind of close to me, but 2018 is the year that the Glenside invited outsiders into their leadership. Not totally an outsider, but Glenside started as a local club years ago, and it's always been run by people, at least in the Chicagoland area. I've been attending their meetings, electronically for some time. This year, the elections came along for the Glenside officers, and Tony Pedraza nominated me for president, and then there was an election, and I came out as president. So hopefully that's for the best, but one way or another, it should be a little bit of a change for Glenside. Maybe not too big. We're still going to have CoCo Fest the same place and mostly run by the same people, but hopefully it's the start of an improvement.
New blood. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good to see some fresh ideas, and the membership's been pretty static for a while, so it's always good to mix things up once in a while.
Yeah, I think so. It's always. I think a lot of us have some pent up ideas maybe on how things should be different or should have been handled differently. Well, for a long time perhaps. Some things we can change pretty quickly. Other things might be a little more difficult to change. I know we had a discussion of moving to use a mailing list as opposed to just having to type in a dozen separate email addresses when we wanted to send email to the people that attend Glenside meetings, and that was a lot more controversial than I would have expected it to be. But so sometimes change comes slowly. We'll see. It might be come next year that they kick me out on my rear end and elect somebody else to be a president, or maybe not. Who knows? But in the meantime, we've got CoCo Fest underway, getting closer. Still need to get some artwork for our fest theme. That's still underway.
I think it's a good thing, John. I mean, you've always been very passionate about the CoCo, the starting of the podcast itself and everything else you've done. So I think it's in good hands.
Well, I appreciate that.
How many CoCo Fests have you been to? I mean, it's not like you're some newcomer either.
Well, I went to 2001 was my first one. I had been to PennFest 2000 before that. And then I missed one probably around 2004, 2005. But otherwise, I've been to all of them since then. So 17.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
17 out of 28. It's not too bad.
I mean, if you look at the trickle effect, all this, with you, John, being one of the founders of the podcast and trying to get renewed interest in the community. I mean, if you think about what has all progressed or transpired since that time, I mean, I think there's a lot of people right now in the community that could, if you work your way backwards, it would be the start of that podcast again to drum up interest, in the CoCo. So,
well, I definitely agree, and that's definitely what I think. I'm not sure everybody keeps that in mind all the time, but sometimes, a lot of people's idea of history starts the day they were born. Sometimes it seems like there are people whose idea of history starts at the end of their nose. So, you never know, right? But, there are a lot of people in the community now that, a lot of them there's a lot of new people versus, say, people that weren't in the community at all 4 or 5 years ago. And there's a lot of people who have as much claim to being an old timer as I do, maybe more, but maybe had faded away for whatever reason that have come back since there's been, shown some signs of life or whatever. One of those, side effects or whatever over the past couple of years has been, the other CoCo show that's out there, CoCo Talk. They started out pretty disorganized, but, kind of a let's get together and chat about CoCo Fest kind of thing. And I think they would agree with that. But they've been at it for a year and a half now, something like that. And they get together every week. Sometimes twice on Saturdays. They've become a bit more organized and put a little more thought into their shows and do a little bit more preparation or whatever. And I've gotten to where I've enjoyed their shows more and more as they go on. That's a big plus. Maybe one day I'll be able to retire from the podcast and still have somebody to listen to. That'd be cool. Well, we, of course, have nothing but best wishes for CoCo Talk. Some may see us as competitors. Sometimes it's tempting to think of that. Once in a while, they may snag an interview that we were hoping to get, that sort of thing. But, for the most part, we're, happy to see the extra activity in the community. what else has been happening this year? One of the things that has been the continuing topic for the past couple of years has been adding audio chips or audio cards or whatever to the CoCo. Well, I was going to release an enhanced version of Farfall that takes advantage of the audio chip on my Game Master cartridge at CoCo Fest, and at kind of at the last minute, I discovered there was a problem where I was getting a lot of noise that was unanticipated. It seemed to vary a bit machine to machine, but still was more than I could tolerate and feel good about selling a product. So I delayed shipping on that. I'm now reworking those cards and hoping to get something out next CoCo Fest. In the meantime, we have seen some interest in the Game Master cartridge from other sources. We know of at least one game that's made some pretty decent progress. There was the CoCo PSG card that was been released, but I haven't seen much activity around that. I don't think I've missed it. Are you guys aware of any activity around that?
No, nothing I could see.
No,
unless someone has a project they just haven't announced yet.
Yeah, there might be.
Maybe they'll spring it on us. I mean, I think Ed's put out a lot of documentation on it and things like that, but I haven't heard of anything.
Yeah, I mean, Ed's done some demo stuff there, and that's cool. But
I don't know if the Mega Mini's been around long enough for anybody to have done anything with the OLP3 sound either. So
the Mega Mini has been released, so that's yet another option. I think programming that chip is going to be a little bit extra complicated compared to, say, the 76489. It's not insurmountable if somebody wants to do it, and certainly if you kind of don't use all the extra features, then it's not that much more complicated than the chip on the GMC. But then, of course, then you're not using the extra features, so why did you go with the extra complicated chip? But, whatever. The point being is there were some people that were saying, well, I'm waiting until the super duper OPL3 chip is coming out, and that's going to be awesome. And say, well, it's out now, so put up or shut up is kind of where you're at now. If you say you wanted an audio chip to develop a game, well, you've got 3 options out there. They're all available. Let's have some games. I want to have some games that actually use hardware audio. That's what I started the whole GMC thing for, was to get some games out there. So are we going to see some games in 2019 that use them? Well, I mean, I certainly intend to have one out. Maybe more than one. Who knows? But anybody know if anything else is likely to come out?
I do have a question on the audio chip with Ed's PSG versus the Mega Mini. Those are 2 different audio chips, correct?
Completely different, yes.
Okay. Personally, for folks that have an MPI, I think if there's games developed for the Mega Mini MPI, that may be a little difficult to just buy that to get the audio chip to play that game, whatever may come out. Maybe he'll consider making a version that's cart or some add-on, but I wonder how that's going to work, with the Mega Mini and people developing for it. If there's that many people that need MPIs, then maybe that will be very successful.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's hard to say. So maybe while we're inventing products for other people, maybe a CoCo OPL3 to go with the CoCo PSG. Because we have to have the name CoCo in all our products, right?
Yes.
I do know Chet Simpson, when he releases Super Sack Race, he's going to put in the support for different sound cards, including the GMC. So that's cool.
Yep, that's what he said. So hopefully we'll see that coming. I know Steve Bjork has said that he intends to support the OPL3. So we'll see what he comes up with.
What does Sir Sound use?
Sir Sound uses the SN76489, the same as what's in the GMC. It is serial attached, which has, that's going to create some limitations on how fast you can feed audio to surround, or how much CPU time you have to do anything else. So I'm kind of skeptical of the game applications of surround on the basis of that, but I guess it depends on the game and the music.
Yeah, no, I only mentioned it because I thought I remember seeing something on Steve's show quite a while ago where Steve Bjork had mentioned that he thought Alan's was the project to support with regards to sound.
Yeah, I remember him saying that before he decided he was going to support Ed's thing or whatever. But
surround isn't really isn't being produced, right? I mean, it's just kind of a roll your own thing at this point. Is it, or is it? Can you buy it?
I don't know. I think Alan mentioned he might sell some at a. I thought one of the past shows we just had, but I know he's been kind of.
Well, I know they talked about making a board or something. The only thing I've seen is a bunch of breadboards tied together. So
yeah.
I don't think anything has been available. Who knows? They might come available for sale tomorrow, but I'm not aware of anything in production.
So stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah.
Mr. Turtle, how many megabytes does it take to get a good deal on a CoCo hard drive?
I have no idea. Ask Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl, how many megabytes does it take to get a good deal on a CoCo hard drive? Let's find out. 10, 15, 20. It's 20.
Looking for a hard drive for your color computer? Ask the Owl. Owlware is the leading provider of hard drive systems for color computers, offering 20, 40, and 80 megabyte hard drive systems. Our complete hard drive packages include the hard drive, case with fan, SCSI controller, LR Owl interface, and software, fully assembled and tested. 20 megabytes, just $495. 40 megabytes, just $609. And an amazing 80 megabytes for just $875. All our drives come with a 1-year limited warranty, and parts and labor are covered for 90 days. We've earned our place in the market by providing products you can be proud of. Customer service, quality products, and sound design. For all of your hard and floppy drive needs, remember to ask the Owl. Owlware, located in Mertztown, Pennsylvania.
What makes Daddy feel like doing flips?
What gives Mother such happy fits?
A CoCo that's simply super fine. Take a close look at the CoCo package. Now, get CoCo today. Remember the name CoCo. You'll love its wonderful thrill.
Well, let's talk about keyboards.
Yeah.
I know Cloud9 came out with their Cool Touch, at least kind of the prototypes, and of course we got to play with them, and we had them at CoCo Fest, and it's awesome. And as I understand it, Mark's made some significant improvements to the product.
Yeah, he's been using the term Gen 3. Almost like he's got a little brand name or something going on there, a marketing strategy. I'm not really sure I know what Gen 3 is supposed to mean for Cloud9. Does anybody know?
It's third generation.
Third generation.
It's a platform terminology that Mark's using.
I'm personally looking forward to some type of Mylar replacement. I actually have 2 keyboards that are in very good shape, one for a CoCo 2 and one for a CoCo 3, where I just need something to get those things working so the CoCo looks stock again and I can use the original keyboards. No slam on the PS2 adapter because Mark's PS2 adapter works fantastic, and I'll leave that in there. But I would love to get my original keyboards working.
Yeah, it's nice to have original keyboards. Ed Snyder's working on a mechanical keyboard as well. I have not heard any updates on where he's at with that. But
now that's a whole replacement, though, right? You're not using the
right. It's not an original keyboard. It's a whole new thing with switches, so I'm sure it's not going to be cheap.
No. And he bought that laser engraver so he can engrave the keycaps. That's dedication right there.
Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be really nice when it's done. But yeah, quite a bit of activity on the keyboard front this year.
Well, along with the keyboard activity, of course, there's the 2 meg upgrade activity. We've seen. I think it's public that Mark's working on a 2 meg, and if not, I just made it public.
That's also on Gen 3 release as well.
Right. The Boys in Tech, Richard Lorbieski, Boomerang or whatever, is out there at 2 meg. So there's a little Boys on Tech kind of got a little cute, I would say, and released a white paper describing how to use the Boomerang's DAT board to get more memory out of the Triad. What do you guys think of that? Boys on Tech showing that you could plug up his DAT board to the Triad and use it to get a mag instead of 512K.
Yeah, I saw that. I never did try it. I don't know if any of you guys did.
Yeah, in fact, I do recall. I think Richard had mentioned that, it would just run it at 1 meg if you did some modification. But that Mark wouldn't support, obviously tinkering with the Triad board.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought that was a little cute, shall we say? But
what about Paul Barton? Paul Barton wasn't he working on I don't think he was working on one for mass production, but I think he had one up to 8 meg. Thought I saw posted this year too.
Yeah.
Jim Brain had like a 64 meg or something like that.
Yep.
What happened with I have not heard anything from Jim with regards to his. Any updates? Have you guys heard anything?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, Jim kind of fell off the face of the earth with his memory upgrades. I'm not really sure what's going on with that.
Yeah, because he was working on one for the Color Computer 1 and 2 as well, wasn't he? 120
Junior.
Yeah, the Junior. So
yeah, that's what it was called.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you say, these are it's a hobby, and life gets busy sometimes. So.
All right, what about the infamous 256 color gimme mode? That had been a hot topic for off and on for years, and Nick Morentis in particular seemed to be the champion of it. And then at some point this past year or so, it seems to have turned sour for a lot of people, especially for Nick. Is the 256 have we completely given up on the 256 color mode, or did we believe it in the first place? Is it completely out of the question now, or is it still out there?
My personal opinion, I don't even know if it matters at this point. John, I know you've had some projects where you've shown you can get quite a few colors on the CoCo 3. So is Sockmaster. Honestly, me personally, I felt like the whole discussion on Facebook was horrible. I thought it brought out the worst of a lot of people in the community. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth with disagreements on things, but man, and I don't even know Mr. Siegel, but everybody was just piling on this guy, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah, that was.
I just didn't like it at all. I thought that was probably one of the worst things of 2018 with regards to our community.
It was like watching someone club a baby seal.
It was, and you know what? I haven't seen him. If he's posting or doing anything more, I haven't seen anything. Again, I don't know him. I'm not trying to be the defender of him. I'm not trying to, say people are wrong for their thoughts. I just thought that was just a bad moment.
Well, if that's what it took to put this damn myth to bed, so be it, because I'm sick of hearing it. I wrote about it in the book. I talked to John Prickett about it, who didn't even remember it. And yet some people kept dredging it up and wanting to find something that wasn't there. So I'm glad it's done. I hope it's put to bed. If they want to resurrect something like that and then you give me X, hey, that's great. But trying to find some mysterious mystique color mode in a 30-year-old ASIC, I think, is just it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, as when it comes up to, as I'll often post the link to the video I did. I mean, you can get 8 bits worth of color, roughly 256 colors on NTSC in composite video mode. Some of the people who most strongly advocated for there being a hidden mode refused to believe that it could possibly be an NTSC only mode. Which, why is that so hard to believe if you could believe there's a hidden mode in the first place, right? But,
right.
So anyway, there is something there. It's not available in the PAL world, which, all the rest of the world other than the U.S. and Canada, except for, France and anywhere else that did CCAM, was PAL. Fine. But, the the Gimme was designed in the United States, and that's where they, where I think most of their market probably was. So you can't deny it exists just because it didn't work in your country, right? But again, it still doesn't match what the myth said. Like you said, maybe it's time to let that myth die. There is a way to get the extra colors, but it's not in some fancy mode that no one knows about, or at least it's not in some fancy mode that is pretty to deal with. It's in a very specific mode that really is a kind of an ugly hack. Or maybe it's a beautiful hack, but it's still a hack. Okay, well, enough on that one. Well, so Ron mentioned the return of Paul Barden. We've also mentioned return of Chet Simpson. I'm not sure if there are any other names on that level that have returned to the community this year, but just those two is kind of enough. Any other?
I think Jeremy Spiller.
Well, that's true. Jeremy Spiller came back with the blog post or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What does that indicate? That the community's strong enough to merit some attention from some old timers?
I like to think so. I think they had this resurgence in the community over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm sure they can't ignore that. Or if people find themselves reaching out to people that haven't been with the community for a while to ask questions, and that kind of piques their curiosity.
Well, definitely good to see the return of a few folks. Maybe we can get a few more folks to return. One way that might happen is through somebody reaching out and interviewing people. We've had a few interviews over the months here in the CoCo crew. There have been interviews, particularly in the past few weeks, over on CoCo Talk. Are we bringing any old-timers in with the interviews? We would love to talk to people. If there's anybody out there who falls under the former CoCo luminary category, we would love to interview you. We'd love to interview just about anybody, but do reach out, or when we reach out to you, please respond, and please don't assume that we're the other people. I think that's happened a few times. Had a lot of assembly language tutorial talk over the past year. The Long Branch Never video series. How many of those did they get up to, though? I think there were only a couple made. There's a fairly lengthy series by Steve York on CoCo Talk. Simon Johnson is always out there trying to help people.
I'm sure that's not too surprising. I'm sure there's just a bunch of people who got to Chapter 3 and then never got back to it.
When you say Chapter 3, Mike, you referring to the book?
Yeah, I'm really referring to books. When you pick up the how-to books and start to learn assembler. I think it's pretty common. People want to get into it. I mean, I try to get into it, and it's good, but you need the time to really lay those foundations down. If you're not doing it all the time, it's easy to forget.
Right. Well, it makes me feel better because that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a realistic, real life intrudes is what we always say, right? Hopefully there'll be some re-energizing of those tutorials, get some people in on there, and I think it helps. A lot of people out there who at least say they want to learn. Hopefully they'll find the strength within to follow through on the learning, right?
Right.
Along the same lines, there was a talk of an actual Rainbow magazine kind of revival as like a PDF style, magazine. But mostly it was kind of a mock-up. I guess there were a couple of articles contributed to the mock-up. We got it to a few pages, but there's only the one issue or whatever, for lack of a better term. It looks like Mark Overholzer is trying to revitalize that within the past week or two. If you'd like to write for the CoCo community, reach out to Mark and see if you can get that going. It'd be nice to have some kind of written, maybe printable kind of thing to consume each month. That'd be kind of cool, right?
I would offer a suggestion that if that magazine doesn't take off, if there's an outlet for people where they feel like they want to write articles and contribute, I say get them to the Glenside Club. It seems like they're always, that's a nice newsletter. I am sure most of the club members would appreciate getting articles from other people in the community to add to it, just to help out.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Well, it is a great point, and it would be nice to have some good articles, more good articles to put in the Glenn's Eye newsletter, which the next one should be coming out within the next week or so.
Yeah, and if Ron has that creative bug still to do logos and things, maybe stuff for the club newsletter, if the rainbow one doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's true. That would be good.
It would be cool to have a monthly magazine, but it's really kind of an uphill climb in the internet world in which we live, when you can just simply post something you wrote on a blog immediately. So
that's true.
Kind of tough to find. I mean, real magazines are having those difficulties. So.
It's definitely tempting just to go ahead and post a blog. Anybody can get a blog. You can get it hosted for free. You don't even have to learn very much to work the software.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of have to go out of your way not to publish before you get it into a newsletter.
Right.
Well, speaking of creative endeavors and publishing, we did have something kind of interesting that finished up this year. I think it started late last year, or maybe even mid last year. But the D. Bruce Moore's CoCo-based radio drama or whatever, multimedia drama, really, CoCo Forever. Not really a mystery, I guess, but alternate reality story based on time travel to the past and what would happen if you could make the right choices for the CoCo to become a dominant computer. Definitely a little bit outside the box, shall we say. Good to have some outside the box projects there. What about, is this the year of RS-232 Internet? Neil got his BBS up online. You can get to it over Telnet. Theoretically, you get to it over with a CoCo.
Yeah.
Is anybody doing that?
Yeah, I got a lot of CoCo users on there. Seems to be pretty popular. I know most people mention on there when they sign in that they're using a CoCo 3, and so that's cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done some of it too. Got a couple of those ESP8266 modules, but honestly now with DriveWire, high DriveWire, they make it real easy to use. And now you can use if you don't want to go into Nitrous 9 or Vuzix, you can do it right from Disk Extended Color Basic. You can do very, very easy telnets out using, the DriveWire protocol. Very simple to do. It makes it nice.
Well, this year we saw, I guess it was this year, we started seeing these HDMI cables in production, like the
switcheroo?
Yeah, the switcheroo Jason's cable. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Anybody using those?
Needs a converter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used one. I supported them. I picked one up. It works nice. Yeah, it's a nice, crisp picture. Good solution.
Think that's the future of CoCo displays?
I don't know if it's the future, because like I said, you do need that converter box. You got to go from SCART to HDMI, so it's 2 extra things you need. But it does work nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm still using CRT, so.
Yeah.
I'm still doing RGB.
Yeah, same here.
So they probably won't last forever. Who knows? Maybe they will.
They will.
Yeah.
I won't believe anything else.
I'm with you, Mike.
I got backups, and I got an LCD that does RGB, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we're still using dot matrix printers.
That's right.
In 2018, we had the second round of Tandy assembly. I think that was a big success.
It was. It was great.
So still charging forward on there'll be one in 2019 and hopefully beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No plans to stop.
Yeah.
Very good.
Tandy assembly this year was very good. I mean, it was a shame that you and Boise weren't there. I thought you guys were missed. I mean, the show was still great, but you guys are a key part of all that, and But the nice thing is I interacted with met a lot more people, and unfortunately that means I spent more money on a few other D&D products that I didn't necessarily need. But it was really great to work with Mike and Neil. So thank you guys for allowing me to help out where I could.
Oh yeah, thanks for helping. And
we
lots of people were asking about John and Boise, and of course when they ask about Boise, it was always about him owing them money.
Yeah, I'm skimping out on my bills in the CoCo community.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, Lord. Well, so all those people asking about our lack of attendance probably are part of the now more than 75,000 downloads of CoCo Crew podcast episodes for all time.
It's astounding.
More than 30,000 of them this year.
That's awesome.
That's pretty impressive, I think. So that's a good year. It's nice to see some good download numbers, and if we didn't have an audience, we'd just be sitting there talking to ourselves, which we could probably have more fun doing without recording. But nice to have an audience, talk about things that people are doing, and express our own approval or support, or maybe in some cases disapproval, depending on the case of jumping on somebody, be kicking them when they're down, that sort of thing. But it's been a good year. Hopefully we can finish out 2018 here and next week, and 2019 will be another good one, maybe even one better. Well, so maybe a round of predictions. Anybody have a prediction for 2019?
I have a prediction that Cloud9's Gen 3 products are going to seriously rock.
I was going to say Cloud9 again, just like you.
Yeah, my prediction was more hardware coming to the community.
I'm going to go out on a limb and predict there's going to be some new software coming to the community.
Well, that would be nice in both cases.
I think we're going to see some new cartridges. I think.
Yep.
I think we'll see some stuff coming out to support the GMC. Yeah.
Well, I definitely hope that this is a year we see some actual audio hardware using games or other software come out, whether it's the GMC or one of the other solutions. The biggest issue is, you got to have the software have some notion that it's going to play some music. And once you've done that, you can probably adapt it to any one of the solutions to some degree.
I have a prediction. I predict that a controversial new game will be coming out in the first part of next year that will take the community by storm in more ways than one.
That involves somebody racing in a sack?
Or a racing sack, depending
racing
on
sack, yeah.
Well, that's probably a good one. I predict strong attendance at CoCo Fest. If it's strong enough, it may even force us to consider a new venue for 2020. So there you go. If you want a new venue, then grab your mama and your pa and all your cousins from down in Arkansas and drag them up to CoCo Fest.
I do have a cousin in Arkansas. She just moved there. No joke.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's bust the doors down this year, CoCo Fest.
Give those elegant elevators a workout.
That's right. If you haven't been to CoCo Fest, this is the year to go. 2019.
Definitely. They are nice elevators. A little slow maybe, but... Well, that's probably all I got. Any other predictions or any other discussions from the year in review? Why don't we call this segment to a close, take another break, probably be back with the roundtable for December 2018.
CoCo Tuner makes tuning musical instruments a breeze. Precise enough for concert piano tuning. Easy to use for music students and teachers. The CoCo Tuner plugs into the cartridge slot of your color computer. Connect a microphone to the cartridge and you're ready to tune. A pitch comparison is displayed on your CoCo screen. Bands indicate whether you are below or above the correct frequency. Accurate within 0.003 hertz of middle C, CoCo Tuner can be used to tune any musical instrument. CoCo Tuner, just $89 from Real Time Specialties Incorporated, Ypsilanti, Michigan. I'll never forget landing at O'Hare and the cab ride to Lombard. When I checked in at the hotel, there were already people in the lobby, eagerly discussing the CoCo. I recognized people I had never met in person. Some by their faces, others by their voice. I couldn't have imagined how meeting people that shared the same passion would rekindle and re-energize me. So many ideas and experiences. Some of the people I met there became lifelong friends. Oh, wait. None of that happened because I never made the decision to go. Haven't you waited long enough? CoCo Fest. For reservations, call 630-629-1500 and ask for the special CoCo Fest room rate. CoCo Fest is May 4th and 5th, 2019 in Lombard, Illinois. CoCo Fest. Make the trek.
Welcome, Grant Leedy, John Strong, L. Curtis Boyle, Mark Bosley, Mark D. Overhauser, getting a little crap about his middle initial earlier. Mike Rowan, the infamous Myro, Neil Blanchard, sorry for my lazy accent, Paul Thayer, Ron Delvaux, Ron Klein, welcome all. I guess this is our third one of these. We're trying to get to just a little roundtable discussion, sense of the community, just a general kind of unscripted talk about the overall health of the community and kind of what issues are out there. Maybe talk about unveil some projects if anybody wants to do that. Would anybody would like to have any opening remarks or say hello or introduce yourselves?
I guess my opinion is that the CoCo community right now is probably the strongest it's been in several years. I know I said that last year too, but it seems to be accelerating, as I mentioned on CoCo Talk today.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy with the overall state of things. I think we've been growing, maybe not phenomenally, but definitely strongly for, like you say, for a couple of years now. I think that's been helpful. Like I said, it helps build the market a bit for to show people are interested in things, so that people who might want to bring out a new hardware project or a new software project, but might otherwise not be motivated if they think, well, what's the difference? Nobody will use it. I think we're demonstrating that there are people out here who want to use things. Crazy people. Some people actually spend money on things. So, yeah, I think overall we're doing really well.
Yeah, I have to agree that the community's been stronger, too. I mean, I think a lot, like CoCo 3s in particular, have been getting kind of rare or expensive on eBay. So people are actually trying to find ones even that are broke because they're cheaper. And now we've actually got some people that are willing to repair them. I mean, Mark and Richard and others, that if you're not comfortable doing soldering and stuff yourself or trying to figure out, if a capacitor is blown or whatever, that you have a place to go to now, or a couple of places to go to now to get them repaired. And then we can start resurrecting some of these machines rather than, get them dumped off in the dump or something.
Well, that's definitely good. Yeah, I do. You get the eBay complaining periodically anyway, but I've been chuckling lately about people complaining about the prices of CoCo 3s or whatever. And, people complaining, well, I was looking for CoCo 3s, but every time they show up, they're $100. And then I laugh. It's like, $100, man. It doesn't seem like that big a deal to me. But, it's one of those, the reason why they're there is they're that price is because somebody wants to pay that for it. So,
Yep.
It's kind of a sign of strength, right?
And weren't that many of them.
So I think if you, for anyone going back through the CoCo Crew back catalog in that first year or so, I think someone, maybe it was Boise, kind of made the proclamation that $300 was going to be the going price for CoCo 3s. And there were a few that sold in that range, and then they started coming down again. Maybe they're on the way back up again. Who knows?
Well, you got to soup them up, to get those high prices. Put a nice 512K badge on there, and it's all good.
Well, maybe. Then how long will it be till the virgin ones are the ones going for the high prices?
Oh, that's right. It's a circle, right? It'll just keep going around.
It also depends on the purpose of the buyer, too.
Yeah.
Because some buyers buy it for collectible and they want the stock, fresh in the box thing, and others are actually using them. They want to soup them up. So.
Well,
How about with
the
numbers matching box?
Yeah, you start to see the correlation to, say, the classic cars or whatever. You start seeing people talking about matching numbers and whatever. I'm sure there is some interest in that. I'm not sure we've flipped over to the level of interest in that you see in when somebody buys a car, but we may never get there because so many people don't have a box or the numbers don't match.
Stock hubcaps or mags.
Yeah, exactly. I still, when I get to looking for something, I'm always frustrated that they'll throw up a CoCo, barely have a picture of it, and they'll say untested, and I can't possibly test it. And it's like, what? Well, you don't have a television or whatever. But just getting them to flip it over and because some models are more interesting than others for when it comes to the CoCo 2s. If you have that level of interest, it's kind of important to know which serial number you're getting, or not serial number, which catalog number you're getting. But a lot of times the eBay listings or whatever, nobody bothered to take a picture of the bottom, so you can't tell.
And sometimes it seems like they steal pictures from other people's machines, because you'll get a melted keyboard CoCo 2, and then bottom of the machine says it's a 27B.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing, too, is I suspect even back in the day when you bought them new from Radio Shack, we've seen some evidence that Radio Shack was doing upgrades and changing the catalog numbers or swapping the boxes or whatever. It's not quite as pristine. There's no federal registry, right? So people working on them don't have to go and enter any information. I put this part, this new engine block in the in the chassis.
I had a friend of mine that happened back in the day because he had an E-board CoCo and he took it in to get a 64K upgrade, and they just figured it'd be easier just to swap him an F board. So they swapped the circuit board, but gave him back his original case, original serial number, and everything else.
Right. And, who cares, right, at the time? But nowadays you might have somebody, like you say, looking for an E or D or whatever board, or, like you say, specific CoCo 2 models or whatever. Who would have thought back then that anybody would care?
Yeah, because back then I want 64K. That's all I care about, as long as it works.
What's amazing is we don't know how many CoCos were manufactured, do we?
No, we would have, best guess and wink and a nod from Mark Siegel or whatever. I think Boise's book kind of contemplated maybe as many as 2 million, but I'm not sure that counted CoCo 3s. No real way to know at this point, unless somewhere there was some secret record keeping that's still available in the Tandy archives down in Fort Worth. Or we need a documentary archaeologist or whatever the term is.
Nobody else in the community keeps track of serial numbers of like the communities, like in the Atari world or anything else. Is there like a registry that shows how many people have certain machines and maybe the model numbers or serial numbers? I'm not talking about maybe doing like a Carfax report for CoCos, but it might be interesting to see how certain machines are passed around throughout the community if they're sold off. And the reason I bring this up is just a few minutes ago we were talking about how there's a lot more places to go to get your equipment repaired and things like that. When you talk CoCo 3, short of like the Gimme and a few other things that we know of, it seems like most of these machines are pretty repairable. So as I look over my collection, there's times I'm like, well, I have a couple extra of this. Is it time where I let some of those go, maybe get them out into the community for people that don't have them, knowing that that'll help with my budget if I want to get something new, and knowing that if I need to get it repaired, I can. I'm not sure if anyone else thinks about that type of thing.
That's a good point. That we've had at least Mark Marlette's been active for a while, but we at this point we have more people. Even like say Richard and probably a few others that are
Jim Brain, for example,
right, that are commercially repairing the things or whatever. Maybe that does make it easier to let go of some of your spares. It's not quite as irreplaceable certain parts, of course, gimme chips aren't falling from trees or anything, but
at least until Ed's done his Gimme X.
Yeah, right. That was one thing I wish I had thought to text in there when you guys were interviewing Frank Hogg. He said he bought up those supply of gimme chips, but I don't think he said what happened to any of them. So,
yeah, I don't know, because he said he only manufactured and sold 25 TC9s, and I know where 7 or 8 of those went because we were supporting them afterwards. But
sure.
From my understanding, he said he ordered hundreds of them or something. So
yeah, I thought he said as many as 500.
Yeah.
And so, like you say, if there are only 25 TC9s, then there's a few hundred gimme chips that are in the wind somewhere.
Yeah, if we get his nephew Richard Hogg on there, maybe he'll remember where they all went to, because he was more the active developer. Frank was more the salesman. So,
well, that'd be cool. Have that.
Find that horde.
Well, every once in a while that happens in these kind of communities, right, where somebody will inherit an old warehouse or something, and they'll throw open the doors and there'll be brand new boxes of something, and it's somewhere there's bound to be someone with a bunch of CoCo parts, or I don't know, one of those mythological things that it could happen. You never know. But maybe there'll be one full of unshipped MM1s or something like that.
Yeah, the closest I can think of it would be the keyboards from the Deluxe CoCo that Tandy kind of salvaged and resold.
There you go.
Scrapping the rest of the motherboards.
Be cool if somebody somehow saved that scrap.
Yeah.
Sell some CoCo Deluxes. That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I only know of one CoCo Deluxe Boise has.
That was from Microware he got it from? Or?
Well, he got it from someone that he interviewed for his book. And I think it was on loan. I'm not sure they actually want it back, but I don't know.
Because I do know, he's put up the drivers that Microware wrote for the Deluxe CoCo up on the archive, so obviously they had at least one unit there, so I didn't know if that's where he got it from when he was working.
Yeah, I don't think he got it through Microware.
Also, there's another one out there then. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it wasn't shot out in the yard or something.
Those two wouldn't be shipped with 86 gimmies, would they?
No.
These are Deluxe CoCos, so they wouldn't even have a gimme.
Yeah, they didn't have a gimme.
No? Not at all?
No, they
Only
were.
the CoCo 3 had a gimme.
So some of you have participated in the Glenside calls recently. Does anybody have any comments on the state of Glenside? Is everyone happy with the new leadership?
Sorry, I missed that call, actually. I was busy with work, so I didn't get a chance to even follow up to see. Have they released the meeting notes yet? Or
I don't think we've seen the minutes from the most recent one. That was.
Yeah, then I have no idea what you guys talked about.
Only 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was soon.
Yeah, I feel like the meetings have been a little shorter, so I think that's probably better.
What, under 3 hours, or?
Yeah, they were more like an hour, the last one, I think.
Yeah, last week's yesterday's went fast.
Yes, that's an improvement.
Well, it helps too that the library there, they seem to have gotten it together this time where they were already ready and online, so that was good.
How are you finding running the meeting from remote?
Not too bad. I probably could use a cheat sheet on the rules of order.
Do you maybe want to explain to everybody, what are some of the changes that we have been discussing, like the number of tables, the cost, and everything?
Yeah, well, those are two big changes, I think. When you see the exhibitor application, you'll see that it basically says limit one extra table. You can get one, and then if you want on the second one, it's okay to ask for it. But we have people asking for 2, 3, 4, whatever extra tables. We're trying to because we're basically full in the venue, so we're asking people to limit themselves to one extra table. At the end, if we do have some space left over, we may open it up to those who want a few extra beyond that, but no guarantees on that part. Other change was we're changing the table cost from $10 to $25. I don't think that's going to break anybody.
No. That's still cheap.
Yeah.
Then electric is 40, right?
Well, that's okay. That's one other thing is we are offering another option that they're calling a place to call home or something like that, which would basically give you access to a half a table, which basically would just be a place to park, and if you just want a place to be able to sit down, a non-vendor, no selling, and I think that's gonna be, I think that was $15. Those will probably be seated in the auction room. We had some complaints from some vendors about being in the auction room and them not being able to continue working while the auction was going on. Trying to balance things out so we can get the real vendors together in the main vendor room where they can work and display and not be interrupted by shenanigans.
I was going to ask on this, like this is new to me that you guys are doing this sort of half table parking thing there. That central area where we eat and where there's all the tables and stuff like that, is that just not available because of seminars and stuff, and that's the reasoning for that? Or
yeah, I think we're going to keep that for seminars, and of course that's where the meal will be Saturday night.
After this year, are we considering maybe moving to a bigger location?
That's been discussed from time to time. We'll definitely have to consider it. It'll depend on, if for some reason the attendance were to fall through the floor this year, we probably would look differently at it. Any other thoughts on community business, or is everything going all right?
Well, I just wanted to say I was able to make the 10-day assembly this year, and I think the show was a well-done show.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that was an awesome show.
Thanks.
It was well done, and I love the new facility. I mean, that is just very, very nice compared to what it was the previous year. So we didn't lose electricity with the show or anything like that.
I wasn't able to go, but I've heard nothing but good reports. Very pleased that is working out. It's again a sign of strength of the community. I think the attendance was up for the second year. Comparable, but slightly up, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good. We had a little bit of a scheduling hiccup there. Ended up in November instead of October. I believe they're trying to do October for 2019.
Yeah, we're trying. It may actually slide back into September, but
okay.
Keep you posted. We'll keep you posted.
There's a question on Facebook. What's the average attendance of CoCo Fest? I don't know. What was the final number this last year?
117. That's what I heard. It was 117.
I think that was about right. 117.
Yeah, sounds right.
Previous to that, the previous year was comparable. It was above 100, or close to 100 at least. 5 years ago, it was closer to 50. So,
wow.
It's getting down there.
CoCo Fest has had a wide range of attendance.
Well, you're talking about the year you only sold one game. I apologize. I probably should have bought one that year, but that's about the time that things were brewing to get started with the the podcast and some of the blogging and whatever else that I've started doing. And it's like you said, it was getting kind of grim there for a little while.
Yes, and and really, John, you, Neil, and Mike Rowan, it's had a really big effect on the community, and that's not to dismiss the other that's happening. Okay, I mean, you guys kind of, David Trowbridge was starting to put some things out there a little bit, some games, and then found you guys and really got involved in the community, and so all this is kind of kick-started each other,
Yeah.
And I think we're a vibrant community today,
So you mentioned Ron Delvaux. We may have to lean on him for some artwork for CoCo Fest here coming soon. We've got a couple of good ideas for themes for CoCo Fest, but they're good ideas, and we've got music, but we don't have any artwork, which is what we need most right now. We may have to pass it off to Ron.
I was thinking of making a logo for CoCo Fest, so that anytime you have a theme, you'd always have the logo for CoCo Fest. And the theme can change all the time, but the CoCo Fest logo would stay the same. And
almost like a brand.
Yeah, because and then it becomes synonymous with, CoCo Fest. This way, like if you were selling products and it was honored at CoCo Fest. CoCo Fest would be the logo on who's ever ad or whatever. That's kind of what corporate thought is or whatever, with logos and stuff. That's an idea.
Cool. Well, be happy to see your submission.
So do we think we can outdo CoCo Fest that we did last year?
Well,
or do you think
I hope so.
Do you think we hit a...
I think we can. I think we really can.
I had a couple of topics that I had thought maybe it'd be worth having a discussion, kind of like we have the host discussions on the CoCo crew. So the first one I thought is one that you'll see newbies show up in the Facebook groups or whatever. And this happened this week, and I kind of commented on it that, they'll say, hey, I've got this machine, and how do I hook it up to a TV or something like that? And then the first thing somebody says, oh, you need to get CoCo VGA. And somebody else will say, well, it's not worth using unless you have CoCo STC. And then somebody else will say, well, you got to get a Boomerang too so you can run Nitrous 9. And everybody kind of piles on.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Are we scaring off some new members by creating the impression that, the machine by itself is kind of useless or that you need to make a big investment to make it useful? And then kind of to the side point, does that indicate that some of us in the community or maybe a chunk of the community is kind of bored with the standard machine?
Well, I think it tells us the community is excited about it. So they want everybody to know, hey, you can do this, you can do that. This is something we really like and we found we use with it.
I agree. I mean, it's a positive because it shows them that the community is still vibrant and still being actively developed for that. You got all these options now. But we also have to, like you said, John, both Johns, that we have to step back and also say, but you can use it perfectly fine the way it is doing this and this. You just need a cable or an RF or a composite capable monitor or TV set, etc.
Sure.
That you can use DriveWire, which is fairly cheap if you just have a PC or a Mac kicking around in the background. You don't have to buy an SDC. I think just give them all the options, but you have to make sure that you're giving the options both of the current new WoW stuff as well as, assume the guy has no budget at all. He just barely got his CoCo, whatever it is. What can you do with that stock the way he has it?
I think it also depends on if you have someone that's just starting off from scratch with nothing, or if they've had a collection and are just reviving it. I think the path is a little bit different for each one.
Yeah, because I'm just concerned or worried about the guy who he just happened across a CoCo 2 in a thrift store and bought it for $5 and thought, hey, I remember these. I'm going to play with this. Then he starts asking about it, and he starts tallying up all the upgrades, and not to mention the CoCo 3 that he's got to get for $200 or whatever now. And it's like, realistically, most people still have, probably a lot of people still have a CRT laying around somewhere, and most people, even if they have a modern TV, if it's truly a television, not a monitor, then they probably can still plug in the RF output and get a video on that. And so one cable for the television, and then if you get a cassette cable, then you can plug it into your cell phone and play WAV files into your machine, and that's enough to start getting started with. You can play Klendathu or something like that. So, we don't want to create the impression that all you can do is plug in your cell phone and play WAV files into it. We do have all these other options. Right. We want people to know that there's a broad range available. So I guess it's just a matter of tuning a little bit on how quickly we jump on the newbies.
Or at minimum, answer their questions before you propose all of these alternatives.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably the point, is you should, if they have a question, we should answer it before you tell them what else they should be asking.
Right. Well, we have the.
So how do you think our blending or interactions are with the Dragon folks?
Could be improved.
Yeah, we're not one community. We're two communities.
Yeah.
Well, there's a problem with I think the Dragon is CoCo 2 and 1 based. Okay, it's not CoCo 3, and it seems like they're more cassette based also. Majority of the software they have is cassette based. They have floppies. They have, go ahead, what?
There's one other issue with the Dragon community too. Most of the people that I've talked with and they don't really seem to be looking for new things. They seem to be focused on old things. They like to collect the original, cassettes and stuff like that. And so they're not really. A lot of the newer things don't seem to sell really well. They're not seem really interested in it.
So what you're saying is they're classic British boffins.
Yeah, and they're classic. They want it just like it was, and that's
yeah.
where they're at.
They still like new software. I mean, there's been like dungeons, and now this new thing that Paris Surratt has been doing and stuff too, which I think's been fairly popular. But yeah, maybe they're not as wanting to be as modernized as we are.
Right. Yeah.
That might be. I could see that.
People I've talked with.
I try to include them on postings and stuff. And I get I get reasonable responses from them. I've actually had some interest on the GMC technology from the Dragon folks. It's been rewarding.
But it's the same 7 or 10 people, out of the 400 or 500 that are there. It's the same 10 people.
Well, that's true. I do wish we could get them mixed in a bit more. I was going to say we should arrange some sort of prisoner exchange where we get a couple of them to come to CoCo Fest, and then maybe a couple of us go to their dragon gathering they have each year. I've been wanting to go to that myself. Is really the secret, but
yeah, and maybe we can have them on our shows too, like as a dragon guest spot type thing to kind of go over some stuff that was unique to the dragon, and also to get some of the CoCo people more interested on their side of things as well.
Well, so that was my clever segue. And I think you guys talked about it today about the work Per Surratt has done getting the game designer software ported or retargeted to where you can target the dragon and presumably the CoCo with this arcade game designer software, which is it's exactly what it says. It's one of those programs that lets you design the game without having to do all the programming. What do you think of that? It looks like a cool way to expand the game repertoire quite a bit.
I see it as a twofold thing. I mean, one, there's 150 to 170 games ready for the Spectrum that's based on that same engine, so it's not, from what I understand, too hard to port those. But it also makes it easier for people that aren't into machine language programming to come up with the programs to make decent arcade quality games. So we can also create new stuff that's never been seen on either platform before. So I see it as a twofold thing where we'll piggyback on it, get a bunch of new games from the Spectrum first, but we might also get some new game designers who are capable of designing great games but don't have the programming experience to do so.
Exactly. Like you said, it's game design and game programming, two totally different skills. They happen to lightning strikes in a few individuals, and they do it well. But they definitely are separate things, and this helps separate out the design from the actual programming, or at least some of the programming. Hoping to see some good developments come out of this. Definitely have seen what look like pretty playable games come out to this tool and similar tools on other platforms. Can you make a ROM pack with it? I don't know.
Maybe some of those games would be on a ROM pack or qualify for using one, or
I haven't looked deep enough into how the engine works and all that, how hard it would be to make the code live in a ROM pack, but I bet that you probably could, with a little elbow grease at least, I bet you could make it happen.
Yeah, and a big advantage to doing that is, assuming it can, and I'm pretty sure you're right, it could, is that you can use the double speed ROM mode too, so you can write the game, test it on the RAM side, and then you have your game run much faster on the actual hardware like you did on Farfall. So
Exactly.
That has potential making games that you wouldn't normally be able to make at speeds on the CoCo 1 and 2 you wouldn't normally be able to achieve.
So what do you think the uptake might be? Do you think people are going to pick this up? Do they need to be nudged? Do you think we can encourage people to do it? I guess what I'm getting at is we've had a couple of people kind of hinting or asking about contests, and nobody's quite stepped forward to actually sponsor one. So if I did sponsor an arcade game designer contest for CoCo Fest, would we have anybody that would participate? But I figure you could have two categories. One would be porting the existing arcade game designer, the existing games to the CoCo, and then another category would be doing an original game based on the arcade game designer, or using it to create a new game for the CoCo. Do you think anybody would play?
I guess it depends how far along his tool set and stuff is, because it sounds like it's not quite ready for prime time. It's like it's enough to port, but I think you have to know the ins and outs quite a bit. I don't know if we would have enough time, or if they get far enough along on that for this upcoming fest.
Okay, well, consider this the floating of a trial balloon. Let me hear from you if you think you'd be interested in the contest, if you'd actually participate. We're only going to have 0 or 1 or 2 people, then it's probably not worth it. I could just hand you a few bucks. And feel free to comment on the simulcast to Facebook, or send me an email, or send feedback at cococrew.org, and let us know what you think if you'd want to participate. Yeah, I was thinking, we could put up a meager cash prize, $100 or something like that, and
I think it's a great idea. We just have to see, is it ready enough to have it ready in time for this upcoming fest? That's my only concern at this point.
We just had a question from a listener, John.
Okay.
They want to know if the game could be sexy.
Well, I don't see why not. What?
Of course.
There's no rules.
How sexy are you going to get with a CoCo game? I don't know.
What was that? What's that game that Boise always tried to?
Company?
Boise always tried to get that picture for that strip.
Oh, the stripper or whatever. From
the strip game. Yeah.
There's a strip poker port for the CoCo too. So
there was Leisure Shoot Larry, I guess. I mean, that's kind of sexy, right?
Or some of those text adventures, Madame Rose's massage parlor, etc.
Rick Adams, I see you joined us. Hello, Rick. How are you?
Hello. Glad to be here.
Welcome. So, what do you think? How's the community doing these days, Rick?
Oh, it's doing great. Everyone's great.
Well, who else have we not heard much from? I see Chet Simpson lurking. Chet, are you there?
Yeah, I'm just hanging out, eating some Doritos.
What flavor?
Is that code for something?
No, man, these are the Cool Ranch. I mean, I put these on everything since I was a kid. I mean, you want a BLT? It's a bologna Dorito and lettuce tomato. So.
Nice.
That's funny. There's a little local restaurant chain in the Pittsburgh area called Permane Brothers. I think there's 3 or 4 locations, something like that. But that's what they're famous for. Is whatever you order, they put it all on the sandwich. So if you order your sandwich with fries, they put the fries on the sandwich. So
I like that.
Yeah, not bad. But so if you're ever in Pittsburgh, then stop by Permane Brothers. So who's left? Mark B. What is it? Bosley? Is that right?
Yes.
Coming to an end. So any final thoughts for us? How new are you back to the community?
So back in 85 to 89, I actually worked for Tandy as a bench tech. So I was actually repairing everything from the Model 1s up through the 6000s, 3000s, whatever. But acquired CoCos back then and pretty active in it. They've pretty much sat in the shed for 20 years. Dug it up a couple years ago just to fire everything up, test it out, and get it all running again and put it all away. Back in, September, I think it is, I stumbled across the CoCo Talk Live channel on YouTube. Wow, there's a community here.
Yeah.
To me, that whole thing is just like the CoCo Club meetings we used to have. Back in that same community again. And so I'm getting more and more into it. Started got my computer actually out on the desk to stay out on the desk and start working with it.
So Neil, how about you got any parting thoughts or?
Well, I think 2018 was a good year. That's for sure for the CoCo, and I got a feeling 2019 is going to be even better. It's going in the right direction.
Cool.
It's going to be, I got a couple projects myself going to release 2019, and I know a lot of other people have stuff going on, so it'll be pretty exciting.
So, any of those on ROM cartridge?
Yes, they are.
Awesome.
Myra, are you still with us?
Still here.
Any final thoughts for the recording?
Just wish everyone a happy new year, and 2019 should be another great color computer year and another great CoCo Fest.
Very good, very good. Well, I think this has been a nice segment, another great roundtable. We've done this is our third one, I think. Planning to do at least one more before CoCo Fest, and then after that we'll see what we do next year. No promises, but I think these have been successful so far. Again, it's been a good end of the year. Very good 2018. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of a great community. And, of course, thank you, everyone, for joining our recording here. So, seeing our participant list, it's thank you, Chet. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Mr. Strong. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Mark Bosley. Thank you, Mark Oberholzer. Thank you, Myro. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Paul Thayer. Thank you, Rick Adams. Thank you, Ron Delvaux. And thank you, Ron Klein.
Okay, climbers, this is Avalanche Country, so let's keep it quiet. So what have you been up to lately? Oh man, I've been having a blast with my TRS-80 Model 3 and 4. What's making it so fun? I've added the M3 SE from Bartlett Labs. What's that? It's the Model 3 System Expander. It gives you solid-state hard drives on compact flash, Ethernet, a real-time clock, and you can connect an SVGA monitor. That's incredible! It also has an Atari 2600 compatible joystick board. You can play games like never before. Wow! Shh. Sorry. It works with the Model 3, 4, 4D, and 4P. The 4P can even automatically boot from a hard drive image. Where can I get one? Get carried away with your TRS-80 Model 3 or 4 with the Model 3 System Expander. Visit bartlettlabs.com for details and pricing. Were your taxes a mess last year? Do you look at your bank balance and wonder where all the money went? Then you need CoCo Accountant 2. This home and small business accounting program is all you need to answer the 3 big questions about your money. Where did it come from? Where did it go? And what can I deduct from my taxes? Spend a few minutes with your canceled checks, credit cards, receipts, and payroll stubs. The 32K tape version stores 450 entries in a single file, 500 for disk. The 64K version stores 900 entries on tape or disk. Our happy customers say this is the most useful program they own, and you'll agree. Only $34.95, tape or disk. CoCo Accountant 2 from Federal Hill Software. Fine products for the Color Computer, Dragon, and MC10.
Hello, CoCo Cruisers. This is John again with another helpful tech segment for the CoCo Group Podcast. This time I've been asked to cover some detail on how keyboard scanning is done for the CoCo. And since it's pretty much the same as the Dragon, I'll throw in a few details there as well. So, what is a keyboard? Right. Well, so a keyboard is literally an array of switches, shall we say. And so, how is this dealt with? On the keyboard's circuit board, these various switches, which are already kind of in a matrix-like layout, are logically forced into an actual matrix, meaning something that could be said to have rows and columns, or something like a spreadsheet. You literally have separate circuits or separate wires that connect. Well, each one sort of connects a sequence of switches, and some of them connect them in the order of the horizontal rows of a matrix, and some of them connect them in the vertical columns of a matrix. And so, any given switch, when it closes, it connects a certain row to a certain column. So if you recall from some of our very early tech segments on CoCo architecture, and if you don't recall, then you really should review the first year or so's worth of tech segments. Anyway, as if you recall, the CoCo has a couple of Motorola 6821 chips, which are also known as peripheral interface adapters. These are used to implement the various peripherals for the CoCo, including the keyboard. And so one in particular is used largely to implement the keyboard. And so if you recall, a PIA has two 8-bit data ports, and the various bits can be configured either as input or output. What's been done is the first port, port A, which would be addressed at address FF00, is representing the horizontal rows of the matrix, and the second port, port B, which would be at FF02, is wired for the vertical columns of the matrix. And so port A is then configured for reading. All the bits are inputs. And then port B is configured for writing, so all the bits are outputs. So it turns out that one bit of port A is used for a different kind of input. It's not part of the actual keyboard scan. So you end up with 8 columns and 7 rows, so you can have a full complement of 56 possible key combinations. In the early CoCos, 4 of those are left out, and in the later CoCos, added a few keys. I think it's completely full with the CoCo 3. I don't have the matrix for CoCo 3 keyboards handy, but if you're wondering where the space for the F1 and F2 came from or whatever, there were a couple of spaces left in the matrix. Like I said, port B is wired for output. Port A is wired for input. Now, with no keys pressed, the port A lines are literally connected to, well, essentially nothing. Let's pretend it's nothing for now. Port A on the PIA, sounds confusing. The port A on the 6821 actually implements internal pull-up resistors. And so basically it has some circuitry in it so that if there's no actual input, then when you read from port A, it will report as if the value of 1 for each bit, or a high value, a 5-volt value. If you read from port A and no keys are pressed, you'll always get back a 7F value. Like I said, that 8th bit is not used to keyboard scan. It still exists, so you'll probably get back an FF value, but you might get back a 7F value. It depends on what's happening at the comparator, which is what that last bit is actually connected to the comparator that's used for comparing joystick inputs to the DAC values. So anyway, again, disregard that for now. So you'll essentially read back a 7F, possibly an FF, but you only want to look at the 7F bits anyway. How is that useful? Well, it's useful for knowing that nothing is pressed. But if you had the port B, if you set that to all ones, so an FF to port B, then even if you did press the buttons, they just would be connecting a 1 value to that input that's already supposed to be reading 1. And so you wouldn't be able to tell what key was pressed at all. Right? So that's where the whole row and column kind of combination comes together. And so when you want to go and scan the keyboard, you will write out a binary value to port B where all but one of the bits is set high, and so 1 bit is set low. You can do it whatever order you want, but let's say you started from the low order bits, you'd write out an FE, then you'd read back from port A, and if you got back anything other than a full 7F value, then that will tell you that a key is pressed, and then depending on what that value is, you would be able to tell which key is pressed. And so, for example, if you got back if you wrote an FE to port B and read back from port A and you got a 7E, then that will tell you that the at key would be pressed. And so, for example, if you instead wrote FE to port B, and you read back a 7D, that would tell you that the H key is pressed. So, depending on which bit is 0, that narrows you down from the column down to the specific row in the column, and that tells you which key is pressed. And that's pretty much the basics of the keyboard scan. You have to understand the binary values and understand that the ones and zeros represent switch closings or openings rather than they're not really numbers per se. They're just represented as numbers. That mostly covers it for the CoCo. Like I said, you have a matrix, and you can look that up. I'll try to put a link in the show notes with some useful information there. With that information, you can tell by walking through a number of values written to port B and then reading back from port A, or writing to FF02 and reading back from FF00, you can determine which keys are pressed, if any. Now there's one little hitch in the giddy-up, so to speak. And a mark of cleverness or resourcefulness or cheapness or whatever, Tandy utilized part of this mechanism to implement the scan for the joystick buttons. So if you think about it, a joystick button is not all that different from a keyboard key, other than the fact that it's at the end of a wire on the joystick instead of connected to the box on the keyboard. So on port A, on the CoCo 1 and 2 and the Dragon, bit 0 and bit 1 are wired to the joystick buttons for the right and left joysticks. If you read from those bits and you get a 0, it means the button is pressed. But like I said, if you'd already selected any given row on the keyboard, then you don't know if that key is pressed or the joystick button's pressed. So what you want to do, of course, is write an FF to port B. So all of the keyboard keys ought to be reporting, even if you did have one closed, it ought to report back a value of 1 on those inputs. But if you get back a 0 on those two bits, 0 or 1 on port A, then it has to be a joystick button. So you have kind of a weird problem that depending on how you've configured things, it has to be a joystick button one way, but the other way you don't know if it's a joystick button or a keyboard key. So if you have ever hit that, sometimes if you press the joystick button, some things expecting keyboard input suddenly think they're getting keyboard input when all you did was hit the joystick button. So if you ever wonder why that is, well, that's why. So as you know, the CoCo 3 has 2 button inputs per joystick, and so they just have extended this. So instead of just 0 and 1 bits on port A representing those 2 buttons, then you get ports 2 and 3, and then they represent the second buttons on the right and left joystick. So 0 is the right button 1, bit 1 is left button 1, bit 2 is right button 2, and bit 3 is left button 2. That's not confusing at all, I'm sure. So does that cover most of it? I think that pretty much covers the big details. So one more interesting fact. This is one of the big differences between the CoCo and the Dragon. Other than the bits about the CoCo 3 having a second joystick button, basically everything I've said so far applies to the Dragon as well, except for the bits about specifically which bits on port A correspond to which letters. So if you're working with a Dragon, like I said, the keyboard scan is done essentially the same way, but for whatever reason, the keyboard rows are a little bit scrambled. And so when you look at the two matrices, you'll see that 7 rows, and the 7 rows as they are in terms of what letters are on each row, they're the same between the CoCo and the Dragon. It's just that the row numbers are different. Whereas on the CoCo, the row for port A bit 0 has the @ key and then A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The port A bit 0 row on the Dragon has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But the port A bit 2 row on the Dragon is the one that's at an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so, like I said, it's sort of the same set of rows. It's like somebody took a ribbon cable and cut the ribbons apart at one point, and then and pulled the wires across and plugged them in a strange way. And then there's one more exception to that, is on both the CoCo and the Dragon, the row represented by port A bit 6 is the same. And so that is the enter key, the clear key, the break key, and the shift key. That's kind of interesting because those are kind of like special characters, special keys anyway. And so if you are going to write a piece of code that might want to run both on the CoCo and on the Dragon, if you can limit yourself, certainly like if you have like a setup screen, if you can limit the navigation for getting to your setup screen to the enter, clear, break, and shift keys, then at least that part will work whether you're on a CoCo or a Dragon. And then, maybe in your setup screen, you can say, use the Dragon keyboard layout or use the CoCo keyboard layout. And then from there, you're fine. Just a little helpful hint. I think that's what I did with Xmas Rush. All right. Well, I think that probably covers all the information that is really necessary. You're using the 2 ports on one of the PIAs. Each port, one's an input port, one's an output port. The port that naturally has internal pull-ups, port A, is the one used as an input. So 1 bit of that is actually used as a comparator input, so it's not really relevant to the keyboard discussion. You may want to just mask off that bit, an AND with a 7F. Anyway, let's see, you output the column. Well, you output a value with 1 bit set to 0 for the column that you're interested in on port B, and then you read in on port A, and if any of those bits are set to 0, it represents a key pressed. Which key it is depends on whether you're on the CoCo or the Dragon. You have to refer to your handy matrix for that. The joystick buttons on both the CoCo or the Dragon, they are read back on port A, the same port A that's used for the keyboard inputs, and therefore they can interfere with the keyboard reading. That's sort of left as an exercise to the programmer. Basically, you need to read the buttons, and if no buttons are pressed, you need to read the joystick buttons, and then if no joystick buttons are pressed, then you can read the keyboard. But if your joystick buttons are pressed, then your keyboard results are going to be at best questionable. Depending on which rows you're looking at, or which columns which rows you're looking at. So I think that covers it. So I hope you found this useful. I hope you are listening carefully to every CoCo Crew episode. We produce a lot of good content for you, I think, including a little YouTube and other content from time to time, even occasional postings to Facebook. We're here because you're here, and if you're not going to be here, or if you're going to spend your time doing something else, then there's no point in us being here. So send us some feedback. let us know either how much you like this tech segment, how much you like the show, or, give us a big raspberry of hatred, whichever you like. All right, well, I hope you made your plans. We're going to see you in Lombard, Illinois in May. Between now and then, CoCo forever. Thanks.
Whoa! What do you want, mister?
I'm looking for gold.
Shoot, mister, we ain't got no gold around these here parts. But you can look all you want.
We got plenty of lead and tin, though.
Who are you? What you got there, stranger?
It's the new J&M Systems JFD CoCo disc controller. It sets a new standard in performance and quality. Its built-in digital phase lock loop data separator means no need for adjustments, ever. And the card contacts, pure gold. Woo-hoo! Best of all, the JFD CoCo is plug compatible with the original CoCo and the new CoCo 2.
How much, stranger?
Just $139.
Wait, where can I get one?
From J&M Systems, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Welcome to Neil's Corner. This is Mike Rowan filling in for Neil while he's on hiatus for warm weather. Hopefully he won't be too sunburned to return next month. Neil usually reviews a game, but I'm only an occasional gamer, so I thought instead I'd talk about a topic a little closer to my nerdy soul, word processors. One of the most useful tools available on any computer platform in the 80s was the word processor. With a low-cost computer, a printer, and a minimum investment in software, you could create professional documents. Best of all, you didn't need to be a great typist because correcting mistakes was a breeze. And if your spelling was less than accurate, a spell checker was your best friend. The color computer had some amazing word processors and sported features just as sophisticated as much more expensive platforms of its day. Consider that word processors were sold as standalone workstations and cost tens of thousands of dollars. When the Color Computer 3 was introduced, its native 80-column mode, larger memory, and improved graphics capabilities really brought about some excellent word processors. Most word processors offered standard features such as mail merge, indexing, print spooling, headers and footers, multiple columns, and pagination. Some sold spell check and punctuation tools separately, while others included them. And each had some special unique feature that might draw you to one over another. Simply Better was a word processor that could do windowing, either two different documents or two different places in the same document. A handy feature if you needed to reference another section of a document. WordPower included spell check and punctuation checkers, but probably its biggest feature was that you could keep up to 460K of text in memory on a 512K CoCo 3. Anyone working on large documents knew the pain of hitting the memory limit. Telewriter 128 was surprisingly late to the CoCo market, but since Telewriter 64 was the de facto word processor for the CoCo 1 and 2, the CoCo 3 version did not disappoint. VIP Writer 3 was also a popular word processor and integrated well with the entire VIP software suite. Max 10 came onto the scene and was the only WYSIWYG word processor for the Color Computer 3. WYSIWYG, of course, being what you see is what you get. It was modeled after Apple's 1984 Macintosh program, MacWrite. It allowed you to use multiple fonts with multiple sizes. You could incorporate graphics into your documents, something that could be done with text-based word processors too, but not as easily or visually as Max 10. And while Max 10 is an impressive program and was advertised as the Rolls-Royce of word processors, it's not especially speedy when typing, and you might get 10 to 20 pages in memory depending on the graphic content. Each of the word processors I've mentioned all included excellent documentation and tutorials. The documentation of this genre of software was easily the CoCo community's finest examples of documentation. While I focused on RS-DOS-based word processing tools, there are also many OS 9 solutions as well. Dynastar was an implementation of the popular WordStar word processor. WindowWriter was a popular OS 9 word processor, and OS 9 was more likely to incorporate text editing features used by programmers. In some instances, text editors could be used as very capable word processors. Programs like TS-Edit, Xword, and VED fell into this category. To this day, VED is my word processing text editing tool of choice under OS 9. It's fast, lightweight, and feature-rich. But then there's no wrong answer when it comes to word processing on a CoCo. There are many great packages to choose from. All of the RS-DOS word processors I mentioned are available at colorcomputerarchive.com, and the documentation is there too. So if you're feeling curious about some of these packages or would like to compare their features to modern word processors, you may be pleasantly surprised. I've been tempted to try using my CoCo 3 for work documentation for a week, just to see how it stacks up. Maybe I'll clear some space on my desk for a CoCo 3 and blog about this in the future. Well, that's it for this month's Neil's Corner. Thanks for indulging my brief overview of CoCo word processors.
Howard Medical Computers. Save $100 on Magnavox monitors. Magnavox CM8505 RGB analog, only $198. Zenith 123A 12-inch green screen, just $67.50. Zenith 122A 12-inch amber screen, just $88. Stop by our showroom for other special deals on controllers, memory, disk drive, software, and more. Open 6 to 5 Monday through Friday, 10 to 3 Saturdays. Located at 1690 North Elston in Chicago, Illinois. Howard Medical Computers.
Well, this wraps up episode 43. Thanks to John Linville, Boise Pete, Neil Blanchard, Ron Klein, all of the roundtable participants, and of course, all of our faithful listeners. It's been a great 2018, and we look forward to a wonderful 2019 and a wonderful CoCo Fest. Until next time, Happy New Year and keep on CoCoing.
Please listen carefully.
CoCo. 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 CoCo.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
What is this crazy rock and roll music anyway?
It's a blast from the past.
Dance, dance, dance.